Louisiana is known for its thick moss-covered trees, winding bayous, and the hum of cicadas in the evening. But hidden in the depths of its wetlands lie dark places where sunlight barely reaches, places where shadows move on their own, where the water ripples as if something unseen stirs beneath the surface. Travelers speak of shapes glimpsed at the corner of their eyes. Strange sounds echo in the stillness of the swamp. Screams, whispers, and footsteps when no one else is near. These swamps are alive with something older than the land itself. Something that watches. Something that waits. Tonight, we venture into the 25 most haunted wetland swamps of Louisiana. Places where shadow creatures roam freely and the brave or foolish disappear without a trace. Step carefully. The darkness here is patient. It remembers every sound, every movement, and every intruder. Hello, dear friend. I hope you are well, and that tonight you are ready for a journey into the heart of darkness. Louisiana's wetlands are mysterious even in daylight. Spanish moss drapes like curtains from ancient cypress trees. Murky waters hide twisted roots and unknown creatures. And as night falls, the swamps come alive with things that do not belong to the world of the living. People vanish here. Travelers, fishermen, and even locals report encounters with creatures made entirely of shadow. Some say they move like smoke, others like water, always watching, always hunting. Voices call from the darkness, calling names long forgotten. Some who wander too far never return. Some who do return carry the weight of fear that never leaves them. The swamps are a trap. They are a home to shadow creatures, spirits of the lost, and entities older than the towns themselves. Tonight, as we explore 25 haunted swamps, ask yourself, Thiza, if you heard your name whispered from the darkness of a swamp, a place where no one should be, would you answer it? Think carefully and share your thoughts, because the answer may say more about you than you know. May your curiosity guide you safely through these haunted waters. And may the shadows remain just shadows for your journey tonight. Bayou Black Hollow stretches deep into the heart of the swamp, where the waters lie dark and still beneath a canopy of cypress trees. Mist rises from the bayou each evening, rolling across the surface like a living veil, hiding the twists of the waterways and the shadows that move beneath. The air is thick and damp, carrying the scent of mud and moss, and an eerie silence often settles over the water, broken only by the occasional croak of a frog or the splash of an unseen creature. Shadowy forms are said to glide between the trees, moving with a fluidity that seems unnatural. They vanish when approached, leaving no trace except a lingering sense of being watched. Locals describe the shapes as dark silhouettes that slip across the bayou, never fully materializing, yet impossible to ignore. Some say these creatures are spirits of the swamp, bound to the water and trees for eternity, guardians of the hollow who react to those who venture too far. Fishermen who have braved the water speak of nets torn apart by invisible forces. Lines that were once taut and heavy with fish suddenly snap, as if something underwater has gripped them with immense strength. Boats drift without reason, oars refusing to move, and the sense of being watched grows more intense as night falls. Many who visit Bayou Black Hollow speak of a presence that follows, not in sight, but in the rustle of reeds, the splash of water, and the sudden chill that creeps along the skin. Whispers float through the fog, faint and unintelligible at first, but gradually forming names and phrases that seem eerily specific. Visitors often claim they hear their own names called softly from the shadows, luring them deeper into the bayou. Footsteps echo along the banks, though no one is visible, and the water sometimes moves as if something unseen is swimming just beneath the surface. The hollow holds its secrets tightly, rewarding caution with silence and punishing curiosity with fear. The trees themselves seem alive, cypress knees jutting from the water like twisted fingers, and moss-draped limbs that sway though the air is still. Light filters through the canopy in thin, silver beams, illuminating the fog in ways that make shapes appear and vanish with the eye-s movement. Every ripple in the water, every flutter of leaves, carries a sense of intent, as though the bayou is aware of every step taken within its depths. Those who linger too long often report feelings of unease, a pressure on the chest, or the sensation of being followed. Shadows lengthen and twist, forming figures that only vanish when focused on directly. The bayou is patient and observant, its energy subtle yet overwhelming, and it seems to measure the intentions of anyone who treads its paths. Many who have ventured into Black Hollow speak of a quiet warning in the air, a sense that the swamp itself does not take kindly to intrusions. History has only deepened the hollow's reputation. Tales speak of settlers and travelers who vanished without a trace, leaving behind empty boats or abandoned camps. Some disappeared on moonless nights, while others were lost in the fog, their names whispered by those who survived. The hollow has long been a place where stories of the supernatural are born, where the bayou seems to keep watch over all who enter. Even during the day, the hollow can feel oppressive. Light struggles to penetrate the dense fog, and the reflection of the water creates illusions of movement, making shadows appear where none exist. Visitors describe a feeling of being drawn forward, guided by forces unseen, and then abruptly halted, as if the swamp itself exerts control over who may pass and who must turn back. Every sound is magnified, every whisper of wind carrying meaning, and the subtle movements in the fog are enough to keep hearts racing. Some claim the bayou tests the living, teaching respect for the water, the trees, and the unseen spirits that dwell there. Those who ignore warnings report strange occurrences at home after leaving. Items misplaced, cold spots in rooms, and fleeting shadows at windows. It is as if Bayou Black Hollow reaches beyond its physical boundaries, extending its presence to those who dare to trespass. By night, the hollow transforms into a realm where reality and legend blur. The mist thickens, shadow forms appear more distinctly, and the water seems to ripple with intentions of its own. Sounds of the swamp become voices. The wind carries messages, and even the most cautious traveler feels the eyes of the hollow upon them. Stories persist of figures gliding silently through fog, of whispers calling from across the water, and of hands unseen tugging at nets, ropes, or clothing. Bayou Black Hollow remains a place of mystery, danger, and awe. It is a living environment, both beautiful and foreboding, where nature and the supernatural intertwine. The dark waters hold secrets of the past and presence, teaching respect through subtle warnings and eerie experiences. To step into Black Hollow is to enter a world where the ordinary is suspended, where shadows watch, whisper, speak, and the bayou itself seems to breathe with the memories of those who have walked its fog-laden paths. Visitors leave with stories, sometimes of fear, sometimes of reverence, but always with the knowledge that Black Hollow is alive. The fog rolls on, the water remains still yet potent, and the cypress trees stand as silent sentinels. Over a bayou that has long held the souls of the vanished, the curious, and the wary, every ripple, every whisper, and every shadow forms a narrative that will endure for generations, as Bayou Black Hollow continues to guard secrets. As Bayou Black Hollow continues to guard its secrets in silence and shadow. Cypress-moorn wetland stretches endlessly, a tangled expanse of water, moss, and towering cypress trees. The knees of the cypress rise like jagged spikes from the dark water, creating a landscape that is both mesmerizing and unsettling. Sunlight filters through the canopy during the day, casting fractured patterns across the still surface, but as dusk approaches, shadows deepen and the swamp transforms into a place of quiet menace. Travelers who venture here often speak of an uneasy feeling, as though invisible eyes are watching from beneath the murky water. Dark forms seem to crouch and stare, blending with the shadows of the cypress roots. Movement is subtle, sometimes a ripple in the water or a shape glimpsed out of the corner of the eye, only to vanish when looked at directly. The deeper one ventures, the heavier the atmosphere becomes. The locals tell stories of the swamp, claiming those who disrespect its waters. Hunters and fishermen who ignore warnings sometimes vanish without trace, leaving only ripples on the water as a silent testament to their disappearance. Some speak of hearing cries in the night, faint at first, then rising in a haunting chorus that echoes through the cypress trunks. The sounds seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, leaving an impression of ancient sorrow lingering over the wetlands. Even the air feels different here. Mist often rises from the water at dawn and dusk, curling around the trees and obscuring vision. Sounds are distorted, footsteps seeming farther away than they are, while shadows stretch and bend unnaturally. Travelers report sudden chills, the water at surface going inexplicably cold even in the heat of the day. These phenomena lend the swamp an otherworldly quality, a reminder that this is a place where natural law seems to bend and shift. The cypress knees themselves are hauntingly beautiful yet dangerous. They emerge in the water in twisted formations, sharp and jagged, as if reaching out from beneath the surface. Moving through the swamp without caution is nearly impossible. Even the most careful footsteps can cause a misstep, drawing attention to the visitor from unseen eyes. Some say the swamp reacts to intruders, a living entity that measures respect and punishes those who trespass with arrogance. Many who explore cypress-moorn wetlands describe encounters with shapes that defy explanation. Dark silhouettes crouch at the water's edge or slide silently beneath the surface. Their forms are vaguely humanoid but distorted, features blurred as if seen through a watery lens. They move with a deliberate, patient grace, emerging only briefly before retreating into the shadows. Witnesses often report an overwhelming sense of being judged or observed, a feeling that lingers long after leaving the swamp. The swamp is steeped in history and folklore. Locals speak of generations who revered these waters, leaving offerings at the edge to appease the spirits said to inhabit the cypress roots. Some of these traditions survive today, with small tokens of respect left along the shore, small acts of acknowledgement for the forces that dwell unseen. Those who honor these customs are said to experience fewer strange occurrences, while the reckless encounter the full weight of the swamp's mysterious power. Cypress-moorn wetlands also possesses a quiet, eerie beauty. The reflection of twisted trees on dark water, the mist rolling through the trunks, and the interplay of light and shadow create a scene that is both captivating and unsettling. At night, the swamp becomes nearly impenetrable, the shapes and sounds blending into a living, breathing entity. Even seasoned explorers find themselves disoriented, unsure where water ends and land begins, and whether the shapes glimpsed are real or figments of imagination. Many travelers recount a sensation of being followed as they leave the swamp. Footsteps echo behind them along trails and boardwalks, though no one is present. Shadows seem to linger longer than possible, stretching beyond natural boundaries. The swamp does not allow its visitors to leave without acknowledgement, a silent warning that respect is required and curiosity has limits. These experiences serve as cautionary tales, passed around to new visitors, ensuring the mystique and danger of cypress-moorn wetlands endure. Cypress-moorn wetlands remains a place where the line between the natural and supernatural blurs. The dark water, jagged cypress knees, and crouching form combine to create a setting that is timeless and haunting. It is a location where stories of the past intersect with the experiences of the present, and where the living are reminded that some places are watched, and some waters are never truly empty. As night falls and mist thickens, the swamp continues its quiet vigil. Shapes glide just beneath the water. The air grows heavier with each passing hour. The wetlands endure as a place of mystery and reverence, a reminder that in cypress-moorn the waters are alive with memory. The unseen are always present. Those who venture too far may never return. Whispering Moss Bayou stretches deep into the heart of the wetlands, where sunlight filters through thick, tangled canopies, casting fragmented patterns on the water below. Sunlight filters through thick, tangled canopies, casting fragmented patterns on the water below. Moss hangs from twisted cypress branches like curtains, swaying gently with every whisper of wind, giving the impression that the forest itself is breathing. The bayou feels alive, not merely with the usual sounds of nature, but with an almost sentient energy that draws the attention of all who wander near. Visitors often describe a strange sensation upon entering the bayou, a weight in the air that presses softly against the skin, as though the place itself is aware of their presence. The moss underfoot is damp and spongy, releasing the scent of earth and decay, yet also carrying a faint sweetness that is difficult to place. Every step produces a muffled squelch, echoing across the water, blending with the occasional drip of condensation from above. As dusk falls, the bayou transforms into a realm of shadows. Shapes move silently among the trees, slipping between the trunks and over the water with impossible fluidity. These shadow creatures are rarely seen in full, often vanishing the moment the eye attempts to focus. Some appear humanoid, others more abstract, and all seem to merge seamlessly with the moss-laden environment. The air becomes colder, and the soft rustling of leaves can sound almost like distant whispers, speaking in languages that are unintelligible yet strangely compelling. The wind carries voices that are difficult to locate, floating just at the edge of hearing. They rise and fall with no discernible pattern, sometimes seeming close enough to touch, only to vanish moments later. Those who have ventured deeper into the bayou describe the voices as a chorus, a mixture of sorrow and warning, urging them to turn back or perhaps to listen more closely. It is an auditory phenomenon that lingers long after leaving, echoing in the mind and filling the imagination with the unknown. Unseen hands have been reported by those who linger too long among the moss and cypress roots. A gentle brush against the shoulder, a tug at the sleeve, or the sudden chill of icy fingertips has left many with sensations they cannot explain. Some describe a burn that is cold to the touch, as though the spirit of the bayou is marking its territory or issuing a subtle warning. These experiences create an atmosphere of tension, a constant reminder that the bayou is not merely a natural environment, but a space where unseen forces are active and aware. The water itself holds a reflective stillness that contrasts with the activity in the trees. Occasional ripples form without visible cause, as if something moves beneath the surface. Fog rises from the bayou in low, creeping waves, softening the outlines of trees and moss alike, adding to the disorienting effect. Paths that seem clear in daylight become labyrinthine in the mist, and familiar landmarks can vanish entirely, leaving visitors unsure which direction leads out and which deeper into the bayou. Local folklore surrounding Whispering Moss Bayou is rich and varied. Stories passed down through generations tell of travelers who entered the bayou alone and did not return. Some accounts describe glimpses of figures watching from the shadows, or a sudden tug at the ankle that nearly pulled a person into the water. Others speak of voices that call by name, drawing the curious further into dense foliage, only to disappear along with the caller. These tales contribute to the bayou's reputation as a place of mystery, caution, and unspoken power. Even during daylight, the bayou exudes an aura of unease. The moss seems to shift subtly, growing thicker or thinning in places without explanation. Light filtering to the canopy creates shifting patterns that can resemble figures moving along the water or among the trees. The combination of visual distortion, shadow movement, and the ever-present whispering makes the bayou a challenging environment for the senses, constantly testing perception and judgment. The combination of visual distortion, shadow movement, and the ever-present whispering makes the bayou a challenging environment for the senses, constantly testing perception and judgment. Those who document the bayou report experiences that defy logical explanation. Photographers capture shadows that do not align with any visible object. And audio recordings sometimes reveal faint murmurs that are absent when listening in real time. Hikers and explorers often feel an intangible pull toward deeper areas, a sensation of being guided or perhaps compelled by something unseen. The bayou rewards caution but punishes recklessness, reinforcing its enigmatic reputation. Whispering Moss Bayou is a place where the ordinary and extraordinary coexist. The moss-laden trees, the shifting fog, the reflective water, and the whispering voices combine to create a setting that is both beautiful and unsettling. Visitors leave with more than images of forest or swamp. They carry the sense of having been touched by something beyond comprehension, a fleeting awareness of the bayou as consciousness. A fleeting awareness of the bayou as consciousness. By nightfall, the whispers grow more distinct, yet remain elusive. Shadowy figures glide between cypress and moss. Unseen hands continue their subtle warnings. And the air becomes heavy with a presence that feels eternal. The bayou is patient, observing those who enter, letting curiosity guide them while always maintaining a sense of control. Whispering Moss Bayou endures as a realm of mystery and reverence. It is a place where the natural world and the unseen intersect, where shadows and whispers tell stories that cannot be fully understood. Every visit leaves an impression, a lingering awareness that the moss is watching. The voices are listening, and the bayou itself remains alive, guarding secrets that have persisted through generations and will continue to do so for years to come. Blackwater stretches across the landscape like a dark mirror, its surface calm and still under the pale light of the sun or the cold glow of the moon. From a distance, it appears serene, a haven for birds and wildlife, yet those who venture closer quickly sense that something is not right. The air hangs heavy with mist, and a silence pervades that is almost unnatural, broken only by the faint rustle of reeds and the soft lapping of water against the banks. Travelers who have crossed often speak of a feeling of being watched, as though the water itself carries eyes beneath its surface. Shadow forms twist and writhe beneath the murky depths, glimpses that vanish as soon as they are noticed. Boats that venture too far often drift without control, and some disappear entirely, leaving nothing behind except a ripple where the water had been undisturbed moments before. Voices echo strangely across the fun, distorted and haunting. Some say that travelers hear their own voices calling back from the water, words warped and wrong, as if the fin is mimicking them. The sound unsettles even the most seasoned explorers, causing hesitation and dread. A lasting impression, a reminder that Blackwater is not merely a body of water, but a space where the ordinary rules of perception and reality are uncertain. The marshy banks are treacherous, with hidden pools and soft mud that claim the unwary. Trees and reeds grow densely along the edges, twisting into shapes that seem almost human in their contortions. Shadows move among the vegetation, their motion too deliberate to be the result of wind alone. Hikers and adventurers often report feeling a sudden chill or the sensation of being brushed by something unseen, a subtle reminder that the fauna is alive in ways that defy explanation. Storms bring out the fauna's most unsettling characteristics. The wind whips across the water, stirring the surface into black waves, and the mist thickens, obscuring even the nearest reeds. Lightning flashes illuminate shapes beneath the water that vanish before anyone can focus, and thunder echoes in the distance with a resonance that seems almost sentient. During these nights, the fin feels more like a living entity than a landscape, aware of intruders and ready to assert its mysterious power. Even in daylight, Blackwater is strange and unsettling. The water reflects the sky in an uncanny clarity, but beneath it, darkness moves as if with purpose. Birds circle above nervously, occasionally diving abruptly as though spooked by something unseen. The air carries a scent of damp earth and decay, and every sound is amplified, every footstep echoing with a weight that feels unnatural. Those who linger too long describe an oppressive sense of isolation, a realization that the fun is vast, indifferent, and full of secrets that are not meant to be disturbed. The stories of disappearances and eerie occurrences have persisted for generations. Fishermen recount moments when their lines are tugged by nothing visible. Boats are pulled inexplicably toward deeper waters, and figures are glimpsed in the fog before dissolving into it. Travelers hear whispers that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, calling names that they do not recognize, yet feel intimately tied to their own presence. The fun is patient, waiting for those who dare to venture too far from safety. Those who have survived encounters with Blackwater can speak of a transformation in perception. Time seems to stretch, distances distort, and familiar landmarks vanish or appear in new locations. The water, dark and opaque, hides both the past and the present, and the shadows beneath the surface give the feeling of watching, always watching. Some leave the fun with stories that they cannot fully explain, memories of shapes, sounds, and sensations that linger long after they have returned to solid ground. Blackwater endures as a place of beauty and dread intertwined. Its surface glistens under sunlight, appearing inviting, yet beneath lies a depth of mystery. There's claimed boats, frightened travelers, and imaginations of all who hear its tales. The shadowed waters, the twisted reeds, and the echoes of distorted voices form an environment, both mesmerizing and terrifying. Each ripple, each whisper, each fleeting shadow reminds visitors that this is a place where nature and the unknown converge, a landscape of secrets and silent power that resists comprehension. Those who approach Blackwater Fun are drawn into a story that is ongoing, a narrative written by the wind, the water, and the unseen forms beneath the surface. Every step along its banks is an encounter with something ancient, persistent, and inexplicably aware. The fun is a threshold, a space where reality and the mysterious meet, leaving a lasting impression on all who dare to enter. It is a place to be observed with, to be approached with caution, and to be remembered as a realm where the ordinary meets the extraordinary in the quiet, dark waters. Phantom cypress swamp stretches across the lowlands, where water weaves between towering cypress trees that rise like ancient sentinels. Moss drapes from their limbs, swaying in the humid air. And their roots form natural pillars that pierce the dark water. Creating reflections that shift with every ripple. The swamp seems alive, holding its breath, waiting, watching those who dare to enter its shadowed paths. Mist curls across the surface, twisting and turning, sometimes forming shapes that vanish as quickly as they appear. Locals speak of black silhouettes moving across the water, slipping silently between the trees. They move with the grace of smoke and the patience of time, gliding without sound, yet leaving a heavy sense of presence behind. Some describe the shapes as neither fully human nor entirely animal, entities that exist in the space between the living and the spectral. Visitors often report a chilling stillness, as if the swamp itself holds them in its gaze. Sounds are muted, birds and insects silenced, and even the wind seems hesitant to cross the water. Then faint whispers emerge, carried on the fog, speaking in tones that feel familiar yet impossible to understand. At times, the black figures appear closer than reality should allow, standing in shallow water or disappearing among the cypress knees, leaving a cold void where warmth once was. Those who linger too long describe a pull, subtle at first, then urgent, as if the swamp itself seeks to draw them into its depths. Hands unseen brush against arms. Feet feel tangled in invisible vines, and the mist thickens around intruders. The water appears to ripple toward them, not with current, but with intention. Many turn back, heart racing, while others feel compelled to continue, drawn deeper into the labyrinth of trees and fog. The swamp holds stories of the vanished, whispers of travelers who entered and were never seen again. Canoes left adrift, footprints that disappear at the water's edge, and voices heard long after the sun has set create a tapestry of mystery. Phantom Cypress Swamp is a place where history lingers, folded into the shadows, where time moves differently and the line between what is real and what is imagined becomes thin. Even during daylight, the swamp feels otherworldly. Light filters through the dense canopy, creating fractured patterns on the water, shifting with every slight movement. Shadows twist and merge, forming figures that seem to watch the living, always just beyond the corner of the eye. A single splash or the sudden flutter of a bird can set the imagination aflame, convincing the mind that unseen eyes are tracking every step. Locals warn that respect is required when navigating the swamp. Disregard for its quiet rules may provoke the shadows, bringing the weight of their presence upon the unwary. Some travelers report dreams of being dragged into the black water, or waking to find themselves inexplicably near the swamp's edge. Others hear faint cries echoing in the night, the water carrying them further into the imagination and fear of those who hear them. Cypress knees form a network that appears natural, yet in the right light. Vines dangle from branches, swaying in a wind that seems localized to the observer. And every sound carries unnaturally far, echoing with intent. Waterfowl, frogs, and insects contribute to the atmosphere, often vanish when approached, leaving only silence and the murmur of unseen currents. The black silhouettes themselves are said to have a purpose, patrolling the swamp and maintaining a boundary between the living and whatever lies beyond. They appear to test intruders, sometimes gentle in their approach, other times forceful, tugging at clothing or brushing against skin. Those who survive these encounters recount a heightened awareness of the swamp's power, a lesson learned in fear and humility. At night, phantom cypress swamp transforms completely. Moonlight glints off the water, illuminating figures that were invisible by day. Mist thickens into walls, cutting off sight, and the sound of water moving seems alive, whispering secrets. Travelers report seeing forms kneeling at the water's edge, then vanishing when approached, and shadows that mimic movements, always just out of reach. It is a place where the ordinary world ceases to exist, replaced by an ever-shifting realm of fog, water, and mystery. Despite its dangers, the swamp has drawn explorers and photographers for generations, seeking to capture its haunting beauty and eerie phenomena. Few remain for long, and fewer still return unshaken. The swamp rewards patience and respect, but punishes hubris and curiosity without care. Its lessons are etched into the very air, carried on every ripple, every whisper, and every shadow that glides through the cypress trees. Phantom cypress swamp endures as a place of legend, where nature and spirit intertwine. The black silhouettes, the mist, the pull of the water, and the whispering fog all serve as reminders that some places are alive in ways we cannot fully comprehend. To enter the swamp is to step into a living, breathing entity, a realm of shadow and silence that watches, waits, and ensures that the mysteries of the cypress-filled waters remain just out of reach. Every step within the swamp is measured. Every glance over the shoulder confirms the unseen, and every sound is amplified into a story that will linger long after leaving its edges. Phantom Cypress Swamp is a testament to the power of place, the persistence of spirit, and the haunting beauty of the unknown, guarding its secrets in the stillness of water and the shadows of cypress sentinels. Murky Bayou stretches endlessly, a dense tangle of water, cypress trees, and creeping vines. The swamp has a strange silence that sets it apart from the surrounding wilderness. Birds avoid the trees, their songs absent where they might otherwise thrive. Insects hum faintly, but even their sounds seem muted, as if the swamp itself absorbs noise, creating an oppressive stillness that weighs on anyone who enters. Travelers who dare to navigate the bayou report a constant sensation of being observed. Dark shapes shift just beneath the water's surface, moving slowly and deliberately. Sometimes these forms rise briefly, their outlines vaguely humanoid or animal-like, before slipping back beneath the murky depths. They are always watching, always present, and the sense of scrutiny grows stronger the deeper one ventures. The water of Murky Bayou is thick and slow, reflecting the dense canopy above. Sunlight filters through in faint beams during the day, highlighting the gnarled roots of cypress trees and the tangled vegetation that crowds the shoreline. But as evening approaches, shadows lengthen and the swamp transforms. Mist rises from the water, curling around trunks and weaving between the knees of the cypress, creating shapes that seem almost alive. The mist carries a faint, earthy scent, mingled with decay, hinting at secrets hidden below the surface. The locals speak of the bayou with caution. Many avoid it after dark, warning that the water claims those who underestimate its power. Boats left unattended are sometimes found drifting, empty, tide lines mysteriously loosened. Travelers recount sudden chills, an inexplicable pressure in the air, or the feeling of invisible hands brushing against their clothing. These experiences are not isolated, and tales of disappearances have woven themselves into the lore of the region, reinforcing the swamp's fearsome reputation. Murky Bayou is deceptive in its beauty. Sunlight during the day casts patterns on the water that are mesmerizing, and the intricate roots and reflections form scenes that are both tranquil and unsettling. But beauty can be a lure. Those who linger too long find that the swamp exerts a quiet influence, drawing them deeper, closer to water, into areas where the shadows thicken and the dark shapes beneath the surface move more boldly. Some witnesses describe hearing faint whispers carried on the wind, unintelligible and fleeting. Others report sounds of splashing or dragging, as if something moves just below, unseen but purposeful. The water occasionally ripples without wind. And in moments of stillness, visitors can feel the presence of something vast and patient, waiting, measuring, and observing. The swamp is also a place of subtle, shifting geography. Trails that appeared clear at dawn may be obscured by rising water in the afternoon. Trees seem to shift position when viewed from different angles, and shadows bend unnaturally in the mist. Travelers report losing their sense of direction, even when following familiar landmarks, as if the swamp itself is alive and adjusting to their presence. Murky Bayou has its own rhythm, dictated by the movement of water, the sway of cypress, and the hidden currents beneath the surface. Those who respect the swamp as boundaries often emerge with only stories of strange shapes and eerie stillness. But those who intrude carelessly may encounter experiences that linger long after they leave. It is a place where the living are reminded that not all of nature is benign, and that some waters guard secrets older than human memory. The night deepens, and the bayou becomes almost otherworldly. Shapes beneath the water are more active. Shadows seem to watch from every corner, and the mist thickens into curtains that obscure vision. Even the stars overhead are dimmed by the dense canopy and the lingering fog. Every sound is amplified to the drip of water, the rustle of unseen creatures, the occasional crack of a branch under invisible weight. The swamp feels alive, not in the way of forests or fields, but in a quiet, persistent vigilance that unsettles and mesmerizes simultaneously. As dawn breaks, the swamp does not entirely relinquish its grip. The dark shapes retreat, the mist dissipates, and the silence seems less heavy. Yet the water still holds secrets, and the shadows beneath the surface remain. Travelers leave Murky Bayou with a lasting impression of the swamp-esque quiet power, the unseen watchers that never rest, and the haunting realization that some places exist beyond human understanding. Murky Bayou is not merely a swamp. It is a living testament to the unknown, a landscape where caution and respect are essential. It challenges perception, and the bayou always remembers those who wander too far from safety. Shadowed reed marsh stretches across the horizon, a vast expanse of tall, whispering reeds that sway even when the air seems still. The ground beneath is soft and treacherous, a mixture of mud and shallow water. Every step produces a quiet squelch that echoes faintly in the distance. The marsh is beautiful in its isolation, yet it carries an unsettling weight, as if the landscape itself is aware of every movement within it. Visitors often feel they are not alone, though no one is visible. Shapes shift among the dense reeds, appearing briefly before dissolving back into the shadows. The movements are subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but over time, a sense of being watched grows undeniable. Eyes seem to glint from within the tall grasses, reflecting moonlight in ways that suggest intelligence rather than random reflection. As night falls, the atmosphere of the marsh transforms. Mist rises from the shallow pools, curling around the reeds, and softening the outlines of the terrain. The wind carries whispers that are too intricate to be human, a series of tones and patterns that seem almost melodic yet disjointed. Some who listen closely report recognizing fragments of names or phrases, though they remain incomplete, though they remain impossible to fully understand. The marsh is alive with sound, subtle but pervasive. Frogs croak in the distance, insects hum, and water lapping at hidden channels blends with the shifting reeds. Yet beneath these natural noises, an underlying rhythm persists, a low hum or murmur, that seems separate from the ordinary life of the marsh. It is this presence that leaves visitors with a lingering unease, the sense that they have entered a place beyond ordinary perception. Shadowed figures occasionally emerge between the reeds. They are fleeting, sometimes appearing as a silhouette against the mist, other times as a vague form that melts back into the vegetation. No one has reported being approached aggressively, yet the experience is disorienting. Some describe a chill in the air when these figures appear, a sudden drop in temperature, or a pressure on the chest, as though the marsh itself responds to the observer's presence. The complexity of the whispers adds to the mystery. They are not random sounds of wind or wildlife. The intonation rises and falls in patterns that suggest purpose, a deliberate arrangement that defies human speech. Explorers have attempted to record these sounds, only to find the playback distorted, as if the reeds themselves carry messages meant only for those present, transient and ephemeral, vanishing as quickly as they arrive. Paths through the marsh are narrow and easily lost. The reeds close in on all sides, shifting slightly with the wind, and obscuring landmarks. What seems like a clear trail by day can become an impossible maze under fading light. Mist thickens near the water, further distorting perception, making familiar features unfamiliar and turning simple movements into careful negotiation with the terrain. Even seasoned hikers describe a sense of disorientation, a feeling that the marsh can subtly influence their direction, guiding or misleading at its discretion. Local legends speak of travelers who entered the marsh alone and never returned. Stories describe glimpses of figures watching from the reeds, distant lights that flicker without source, and whispers that call by name. Some accounts suggest the marsh itself is a living entity, protecting its secrets and maintaining a balance between what is seen and what remains hidden. Warnings emphasize caution and respect, advising visitors to stay near the edges and avoid wandering too far into the denser areas. Despite its reputation, shadowed reed marsh attracts those drawn to the unknown. Researchers, photographers, and adventurers come seeking evidence of the mysterious figures and the strange whispers. Many report feelings of awe mixed with unease, the beauty of the landscape intertwined with perception of unseen watchers. The marsh creates an atmosphere that is simultaneously serene and tense, a place where natural elements and supernatural suggestion blend seamlessly. As night deepens, the marsh reveals its full character. Mist rises more thickly, the reeds sway with subtle synchronization, and the whispers gain intensity without ever becoming intelligible. The shadowed forms become harder to track, appearing at the periphery of vision, and vanishing when directly observed. The combination of fog, darkness, and movement fosters an immersive experience, one that engages all senses and leaves a lasting impression on those who traverse it. Shadowed reed marsh endures as a space where reality and perception intertwine. The reeds, water, mist, and whispers form a landscape that challenges understanding and invites contemplation. Every visitor leaves with more than the memory of reeds or marshland. They carry the sense of having been in a place alive with unseen life, where shadows move independently, and the wind speaks in patterns beyond comprehension. The marsh is patient and observant, allows curiosity to lead explorers through its labyrinth, rewarding attention but punishing carelessness. Every sound, every movement, every fleeting figure contributes to the narrative of shadowed reed marsh, a story that exists beyond words and continues to unfold with each new visitor. By dawn, the mist begins to dissipate. The whispers fade with the first light, and the shadowed figures retreat into the reeds. Yet the memory remains, a haunting impression of a place where the ordinary, where the wind carries messages, and where every step into the tall grasses is a journey. Shadowed reed marsh persists as a testament to Naturia's beauty and mystery, a space where silence and sound, light and shadow coexist in delicate tension. It is a place that inspires respect, curiosity, and awe, leaving those who venture within with a profound sense of connection to the unseen and the inexplicable. Darkwater Slough stretches across the land like a ribbon of black water, winding through dense reeds and tangled trees. The surface is still and dark, reflecting the muted sky above, giving the impression that the swamp is watching silently. A heavy mist often clings to the edges, obscuring the shoreline and twisting the familiar into shapes that unsettle even the most confident visitor. The history of Darkwater Slough is steeped in mystery. Early settlers arrived with hope and determination, seeking to carve a life on the swamp as fertile land. Yet, one by one, they vanished without a trace. Entire families disappeared, leaving behind homes untouched, meals still on tables, and belongings left as though their owners had simply walked away. These unexplained vanishings gave the swamp a reputation that has persisted through generations, earning it a name whispered with caution by locals. Shadow creatures are said to roam the murky waters and dense foliage. Travelers report fleeting glimpses of dark forms just beyond the corner of the eye, moving with a fluidity that is both unnatural and purposeful. Some describe humanoid shapes, crouched among the reeds or skimming across the water. Their presence felt more than seen. The story suggests that the swamp is alive, holding on to its history in the form of these restless shadows. Those who venture into Darkwater Slough often speak of the sounds that fill the air. Footsteps echo across waterlogged banks where no one has walked. Whispers drift among the trees, unintelligible yet eerily familiar, as if calling the names of those who dare to enter. At night, the cries of unseen creatures rise, mingling with the croak of frogs and the splash of fish, creating a symphony that is haunting in its intensity. Visitors feel the oppressive weight of the swamp pressing down, a constant reminder that they are intruding into a domain older and more mysterious than themselves. The swamp's environment only adds to its sense of danger. Trees twist and bend under the weight of moss, their branches forming natural arches and shadow corridors. The reeds and grasses move in patterns that seem to mimic human motion, and the water is full of hidden depths, concealing soft mud and sudden drop-offs. Travelers often find their footing uncertain, and boats are known to drift unexpectedly, sometimes disappearing entirely beneath the surface, swallowed by the dark waters. Legends speak of people drawn too far into the heart of the swamp, following strange lights or the sound of voices calling for help. They vanish as the settlers did, leaving behind only disturbed vegetation or ripples across the otherwise still water. Some claim that the shadow creatures themselves guide these lost souls deeper, binding them to the swamp forever. Others suggest the swamp is a test, revealing to those who enter its depths the fragility of human courage and the power of the unknown. Even in daylight, the swamp maintains its eerie presence. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy, casting shifting patterns on the water and reeds, creating illusions of movement where there is none. Mist can linger long after dawn, bending familiar landmarks into shapes that deceive the eye. Travelers report sudden chills, inexplicable unease, and the constant sensation of being observed. The swamp is patient, waiting for those who venture too far, reminding them that the boundaries between safety and danger are fragile in this haunted landscape. Storms amplify the swamp as ominous character. Wind whips through trees and over the water, stirring up murky currents. Thunder echoes in the distance, accompanied by flashes of lightning that reveal fleeting forms among the reeds. Rain falls in sheets, masking familiar paths and intensifying the sense of isolation. During these moments, the swamp feels alive in a way that is undeniable, its dark waters and shadow banks transforming into a living entity that watches and waits. Local stories warn of encounters that linger long after leaving the swamp. Travelers speak of shadows that follow them even in safe places. Whispers carried on the wind that repeat names or phrases from the swamp. And dreams filled with indistinct forms and muffled cries. Darkwater Slough leaves an impression, a reminder that some places hold history in a way that transcends memory, binding the past to the present with an unbroken, eerie continuity. Darkwater Slough endures as a place of beauty, danger, and mystery intertwined. Its surface may appear calm, yet beneath lies the history of vanished lives, shadowed creatures. Shadowed creatures, and the restless energy of a land that refuses to forget. Every ripple, every whisper, every fleeting shadow tells a story of the unknown, drawing curiosity and fear alike. The swamp is a threshold where human courage is tested, where the ordinary meets the supernatural, and where those who enter are forever marked by the haunting presence of Darkwater Slough. Hollow Bayou stretches across the lowlands, where water winds between thick stands of cypress and willow. Mist clings to the surface, curling and shifting as if alive. The air is heavy, damp, and cool, carrying the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves. Every step into the bayou feels like entering a place where time itself has slowed, where the ordinary rules of the world no longer apply. Travelers often report a silence that is unusual and complete, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant croak of a frog. Broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant croak of a frog. Yet within this silence, there is something else. Footsteps echo softly along the muddy banks, though no one is visible. Shadows flicker just beyond the corner of the eye, disappearing when looked at directly. The feeling of being watched is constant, pressing against the mind and heightening every sense. The water itself seems different here, dark and still, reflecting the twisted branches above like a mirror of another world. Ripples appear without cause, and logs drift slowly, as if guided by invisible hands. Some visitors describe a sudden chill that moves from the back of the neck downward, a cold that has no source but leaves the body tense and alert. Hollow Bayou is not simply water and trees. It is a place of lingering presence. Locals speak of travelers who entered the fog and never returned. Canoes left tied to broken docks are found empty, footprints end abruptly at the water's edge, and belongings are left scattered as if their owners vanish in mid-step. Whispers ride the fog, faint and elusive, forming words that are impossible to understand, yet seem urgent and meaningful. Even during daylight, the bayou exudes a quiet menace. The mist hovers near the ground, shifting like smoke, obscuring the terrain and making familiar paths seem unfamiliar. Sunlight filters weakly through the canopy, casting long, moving shadows that play tricks on perception. A single glance in the wrong direction can reveal shapes that vanish when the eyes focus, leaving only the eerie stillness of the water. Some visitors feel a pull toward the deeper parts of the bayou, an almost magnetic tug that draws them away from the safety of solid ground. Hands that cannot be seen brush against arms or shoulders, leaving goosebumps and a sudden tightening of the chest. Sound of splashing water echo unnaturally, and at times voices call from the mist, soft and distant, repeating names or phrases that seem familiar yet unknown. Hollow Bayou's secrets are closely held by the landscape itself. Cypress roots twist and rise like natural barriers, forming narrow channels and hidden pools. The mist thickens in these areas, creating the sensation of walls and corridors where none exist. Travelers report glimpsing figures standing silently in these hidden spaces, their faces obscured, their intentions unclear. Some are said to move closer with each heartbeat, while others vanish into the fog, leaving only a lingering sense of presence. At night, the bayou transforms further. Moonlight glints off the water, revealing fleeting reflections of shapes that should not be there. Mist swirls in unpredictable patterns, forming tunnels, walls, and figures that seem to breathe. The air is cooler, denser, and every step is accompanied by the unshakable feeling that unseen eyes follow from every direction. Locals warn that Hollow Bayou is not a place for wandering without care. Respect for its boundaries and its stillness is necessary, or the spirits said to linger here may become aware. Some say these spirits are ancient guardians, bound to the land and water, enforcing rules invisible to the living. Others believe they are echoes of those lost, replaying moments of fear, confusion, and longing for any who dare enter their domain. Despite its danger, Hollow Bayou draws curiosity and exploration. Photographers, hikers, and those seeking the supernatural come to witness its beauty and mystery. Few stay long, and fewer leave unshaken. The bayou demands awareness, caution, and humility, rewarding those who tread carefully with glimpses of its haunting landscapes and unsettling phenomena. The bayou demands awareness, caution, and humility. Every step within Hollow Bayou feels significant. Every sound carries meaning, and every shadow may conceal or reveal. The water, fog, and twisted trees work in harmony to create a place where the veil between the ordinary and the extraordinary feels thin. where presence is felt even when unseen, and where the imagination merges seamlessly with reality. Hollow Bayou endures as a realm of mystery, a landscape shaped as much by legend as by earth and water. The whispers, the footsteps, the pull of the fog, and the silent figures all combine to form an atmosphere that lingers long after leaving its edges. To enter is to experience a world alive with hidden forces, a place that watches, waits, and reminds all who enter that some mysteries are best approached with caution and respect. The bayou's still waters reflect more than trees and sky, in its silence, in its fog, and in the presence of unseen watchers, ensuring that its secrets remain just beyond reach, forever hovering between the natural and the supernatural, waiting for the next traveler to cross its shadowed paths. From the forgotten soul stretches into a landscape of stagnant water and tangled vegetation. The black water reflects little light, swallowing the faintest hints of sky. Cypress trees and twisted roots emerge from its surface, creating jagged silhouettes that seem to shift when observed. The air is thick, heavy with moisture, carrying the scent of earth and decay. Visitors speak of a strange sensation upon entering the fun. The silence is profound, interrupted only by distant rustles and the occasional drip of water. Even the birds avoid this place, leaving the swamp eerily still. Every step seems amplified, echoing to the trees and over the black water, as if announcing the presence of the living to whatever lingers unseen. Shadowy forms rise from the water, moving with deliberate intent. Their shapes are dark, indistinct, but their eyes glow faintly, amber or red, reflecting the scarce light. Many who witness them report a deep unease, as if in itself is alive and aware. The water is deceptively calm. A ripple can appear without wind, a subtle movement suggesting something beneath the surface. Travelers report feeling unseen pressure against their chests, a weight that grows the longer they linger. The sensation is not merely physical but psychological, as though the swamp is breathing with them, inhaling and exhaling in rhythm with their own pulse. Mist often rises in the early hours, thick and impenetrable, curls around the cypress roots, and drifts over the water, hiding the shadowed shapes, enhancing the sense of isolation. Sound becomes distorted, footsteps seeming distant, voices faint and carried away by the humid air. The mist moves like a living thing, shaping the landscape and concealing dangers both natural and otherworldly. Locals tell stories of those who enter the fun and do not return. Boats are sometimes found empty, tethered loosely as if abandoned in haste. Travelers speak of glimpsing forms in the water that are unmistakably humanoid, yet vanish when approached. The feeling of being followed persists even after leaving, footsteps echoing in empty spaces, and shadows lingering where none should be. The vegetation itself seems to respond to intruders. Vines shift subtly, roots rise higher, creating obstacles that slow progress, and force visitors to confront the oppressive atmosphere. Every movement through the fun feels deliberate, each step a negotiation with unseen forces. The swamp is patient, allowing careful observers to witness its mysteries, while punishing those who disrespect its boundaries. At night, from the forgotten souls becomes a place of heightened tension. Darkness conceals depthless water, and the forms that glide silently beneath. Shapes rise occasionally, breaking the surface, then sinking again, leaving ripples that expand across the blackness. The glowing eyes remain, glimpsed through the mist, a reminder that the swamp watches even in the absence of sound. The fun is a study in contrast. Its stillness belies the subtle movements beneath, the shadows and eyes that reveal themselves only to the observant. The deeper one ventures, the more intense the sensations become near the pressure in the chest, the faint whispers of movement, the feeling of being observed. Visitors often describe a sense of timelessness, as though the swamp exists outside conventional hours, a domain where day and night blend into one continuous moment. The shadows do not follow predictable patterns, and the glowing eyes appear in unexpected places. Every corner holds a potential for discovery, but also for unease, as if it demands respect from those who enter. Even those who leave carry the memory of the fun. The black water, the cypress silhouettes, the glowing eyes. and the weight on the chest remain vivid. Many recount dreams in which the swamp returns, shadows moving just beneath the surface, mist curling around their feet, and the quiet pressure, reminding them that the Fun of Forgotten Souls does not easily forget. The Fun exists as a guardian of its own mysteries. It is alive in subtle ways, its movements measured, its inhabitants hidden, yet perceptible to the cautious observer. Travelers are reminded that some places are not meant to be fully understood, that some waters hold stories older than memory, and that shadows may linger long after the living have gone. Fun of Forgotten Souls remains a place where nature and the unknown converge. The water is black and still, yet filled with life unseen. The shadows rise and watch. The air presses against the chest, and the mist weaves through the cypress roots. It is a landscape of patience, observation, and quiet power. A reminder that in some places, the forgotten are never truly gone, and the living must tread carefully among the eyes that never rest. Voodoo Marsh stretches across the horizon, a dense expanse of dark water and thick, knotted trees. The air hangs heavy with mist, clinging to skin and clothing, carrying a chill that seeps into the bones. Shadows gather among the cypress knees and overgrown roots, moving with a life of their own, creating the unsettling impression that the marsh is watching every step taken upon its soggy ground. The landscape is beautiful in its isolation, yet it exudes a presence that feels alive and knowing. The water is still in some areas, reflecting the twisted branches above like black mirrors, while other sections ripple unexpectedly, as if disturbed by invisible forces. The ground squelches beneath footsteps, each sound amplified in the eerie quiet, filling the vast space with a subtle tension that never fully dissipates. As night falls, the atmosphere of Voodoo Marsh transforms. Mist thickens and the outlines of trees blur, creating corridors of shifting shadow. Figures appear briefly, darker than the surrounding darkness, moving with deliberate, unnatural motions. Some observers describe them as humanoid, but their limbs bend and twist in ways that defy logic. They seem to glide above the surface, disappearing the moment anyone attempts to approach. Whispers travel across the water, carried by the wind. They are not voices in any recognizable language, but their cadence and tone feel purposeful. Occasionally, the whispers intensify into high-pitched echoes, dissonant and fragmented, reminiscent of calls for help or warnings. Those who linger too long report feeling invisible hands graze their shoulders or tug at their clothing, accompanied by an icy sensation that raises goosebumps and quickens a heartbeat. The marsh is filled with natural sounds, from frogs croaking to insects buzzing. Yet beneath these familiar noises lies an undercurrent of something alien. The subtle splashes of unseen movement punctuate the silence, giving the impression that something just out of sight is constantly in motion. Water shifts without cause, reflecting shapes that vanish as quickly as they appear, leaving a lingering sense of unease. Visitors tell of sudden, inexplicable chills, as if a cold breath passes across the nape of the neck. The shadows seem to thicken around certain areas, forming shapes that resemble crouching figures or long-limbed watchers. Some report the sensation of being followed, even when the path behind is empty. The combination of darkness, mist, and water creates an environment where perception is unreliable and the imagination becomes indistinguishable from reality. Local legends speak of travelers who entered Voodoo Marsh and never returned. Many recount the sight of floating lanterns, bobbing silently over the water, guiding or misleading those who dare to follow. Others describe distorted reflections in the black surface, showing forms that are not their own, faces twisted with expressions of fear or despair. These tales suggest that the marsh has a will of its own, capable of luring the curious deeper into its labyrinthine channels. Some explorers have witnessed the unexplainable firsthand. Shadowy forms rise from the water, moving like puppets on invisible strings, limbs contorting unnaturally, yet their movement remains eerily fluid. The figures vanish as suddenly as they appear, leaving behind only ripples and the faint echo of distorted cries. Waterlogged vegetation shifts as if part of some unseen choreography, creating paths that seem familiar one moment and impossible the next. Voodoo Marsh exerts a strange influence over mind. The mist seems to carry a weight, dulling awareness and heightening sensitivity to sound and movement. Time feels distorted, minutes stretching endlessly as footsteps falter in the dense terrain. Some visitors have reported brief lapses of memory, a loss of direction, or the sensation of floating through the mist rather than walking. The marsh bend perception, reinforcing its reputation as a place where natural laws are subordinate to something far older and more enigmatic. Despite the danger, the marsh draws those who seek the unknown. Photographers, researchers, and thrill-seekers come in search of evidence or encounters with its mysterious residents. Many leave with photographs or recordings that cannot fully capture what they experienced. Sounds vanish from playback. Shadows flatten into stillness, and images that look solid to the lens dissolve into ambiguous shapes. The marsh seems to resist documentation, preserving its secrets and maintaining the boundary between what is visible and what remains hidden. By the time dawn arrives, the mist begins to lift and the shadows retreat into the trees. The water calms, reflecting the first light of morning, and the whispering fades to the ordinary hum of wildlife. Yet the memory of Voodoo Marsh lingers, an impression of a living, breathing entity that exists alongside reality, altering perception and commanding respect. Those who walked its paths carry a lasting awareness of its unseen presence, a reminder that some places are older and deeper than human understanding. Voodoo Marsh endures as a testament to the power of the unknown. Every ripple in the water, every swaying tree, and every fleeting shadow contributes to the story of a place alive with unseen energy. It is a marsh where beauty and dread coexist, where the natural and supernatural intertwine, and where each visitor becomes part of a narrative that continues to unfold in the mist, among the reeds, and beneath the dark waters. It remains a space where curiosity meets caution, where the brave or foolish may wander, and where the echoes of the unseen persist long after departure. The marsh waits patiently, keeping its secrets and silently observing, a living testament to the enduring mystery of the world hidden just beyond sight. Gloomwater Bayou stretches across the landscape like a dark ribbon of water and mist, its edges obscured by thick vegetation and towering trees draped with hanging moss. Even in daylight, the fog clings to the banks, shifting and twisting as if alive, hiding pathways and creating illusions that disorient the unprepared traveler. The bayou has a reputation built on years of mysterious disappearances. Hikers and explorers who have wandered its trails sometimes vanish without a trace, leaving behind only disturbed earth or abandoned equipment. Local legends speak of those who dare to venture too far, drawn by the beauty of the bayou, only to be consumed by its shadowed depths. The tales warn that Gloomwater is not just water and trees, but a place where the natural and the supernatural intertwine. Shadow figures are said to lurk among the moss-draped trees, moving silently, appearing just at the edge of vision. Some describe them as tall and humanoid, others as shapes that shift and change, impossible to define. These figures vanish when approached, leaving only a chill in the air and a sense of being watched. Visitors have reported feeling sudden brushes of air, as if something unseen passes closely by, heightening the sense of unease. Whispers fill the mist, rising from the water and winding through the trees. Laughter echoes, distant yet unnerving, followed by soft cries that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Sometimes chants can be heard, rhythmic and low, carried by the fog as though the bayou itself is speaking in an ancient tongue. The sounds are fleeting, appearing and disappearing without pattern, creating a constant tension for anyone attempting to navigate the swamp. The environment of Gloomwater Bayou amplifies its eerie presence. Waterlogged paths make footing uncertain, and the thick reeds and hanging moss obscure vision, creating natural corridors where shadows play tricks on the eyes. Small ripples disturb the still water without wind or wildlife to explain them, and the thick canopy above filters light into uneven patterns that shift as the day passes. Even the wildlife seems altered, with birds and insects moving in silence, heightening the sense that the bayou is not entirely a place of this world. Storms bring an intensified sense of danger to the bayou. Wind stirs the water and bends the trees, sending moss and leaves swirling in unnatural patterns. Thunder reverberates through the mist, echoing off the water and giving the impression of movement where none exists. Lightning briefly illuminates shapes that vanish as quickly as they appear, leaving only the oppressive darkness and a feeling of being observed. During these times, Gloomwater Bayou transforms into a living, breathing entity, aware of every intruder and testing their resolve. Those who enter the bayou describe sensations that linger long after leaving. The feeling of eyes watching from the mist, a brush of something cold against the skin, and whispers carried on the wind are common experiences. Travelers often speak of hearing the sounds of footsteps behind them, yet when they turn, there is nothing but shifting moss and the dark reflection of the water. Even safe paths seem uncertain, and the haunting presence of the bayou follows them beyond its boundaries. Legend suggests that Gloomwater Bayou guards its secrets fiercely. Those who ignore warnings or attempt to explore beyond safe areas are said to be drawn deeper into the mist, encountering shadow figures and hearing calls that seem almost human but are impossible to place. Some who return speak of dreams filled with chanting, laughter, and crying, as if the bayou has left an imprint on their subconscious. The stories insist that the swamp remembers those who enter and holds them within its memory forever. Despite its danger, the bayou attracts the curious and the brave. Photographers, hikers, and thrill-seekers venture into the fog, hoping to capture the elusive beauty or to experience the supernatural firsthand. They return with stories of sudden chills, glimpses of shadowed figures, and whispers that seem to follow them home. Some leave convinced they have glimpsed something beyond the natural world, while others leave haunted, unsure what they saw or heard, forever carrying the feeling of being watched. Gloomwater Bayou remains a place of mystery, danger, and beauty intertwined. Its waters are calm yet conceal histories of the vanished and the shadowed. Its mist obscures reality, and its sounds echo with sorrow, laughter, and warning. Every ripple, every whisper, every fleeting shadow tells a story of the unknown. The bayou endures as a threshold where curiosity meets fear, where human courage is tested, and where the restless spirits of the past linger, forever bound to the misty, shadowed waters of Gloomwater Bayou. Midnight descends over the swamp, and the world changes. Shadows stretch long between towering cypress trees, their roots rising from the water like gnarled fingers reaching into the black depths. The air thickens with moisture and the scent of earth, moss, and decay, carrying with it an almost tangible sense of anticipation. Every sound becomes sharper, every movement more pronounced, as if the swamp itself is aware of those who dare enter after dark. As if the swamp itself is aware of those who dare enter after dark. The water lies still in some areas, reflecting the pale moonlight, yet ripples appear without cause, moving outward as though something unseen has passed beneath the surface. Figures glide silently over the water, black as ink, their shapes shifting like smoke caught in a slow current. They move without sound, without disturbance, as though the swamp recognizes them as part of its own. Locals speak in hushed tones of these figures. They say that after dusk, the swamp is alive, watching, and testing anyone who crosses its shadowed paths. The tales are inconsistent, yet unanimous in warning. Do not enter the cypress after midnight. Those who have ignored this advice often return changed, unsettled, or not at all. The cypress trees themselves seem to lean closer as darkness falls, forming a canopy that blots out the stars. Fog rises from the water, curling through the roots and low branches, carrying whispers that vanish as soon as the ear strains to hear them. It is easy to feel surrounded, to feel the weight of unseen eyes observing every movement, every breath. Visitors report the air shifting suddenly, a chill moving against the skin and a faint pressure as though invisible hands brush past their shoulders or hold them in place. Sounds emerge from nowhere, a splash, a faint shuffle, or the distant call of a creature too large and shadowed to identify. Sometimes it is laughter, soft and mocking, echoing in places where no one stands. The swamp holds the remains of old paths and sunken logs, remnants of a world that once brushed against human life. These objects often shift overnight, found in positions impossible to explain. Canoes tied securely to moss-covered docks are sometimes found drifting silently, as if guided by an unseen hand. And footprints along the banks can vanish mid-step, leaving only disturbed mud as evidence. Those who linger too long speak of sensation of being pulled deeper into the swamp, drawn toward areas where the fog thickens, and the darkness becomes nearly solid, where the ink-black figures are most frequently seen, moving in ways that defy natural motion. Some observers claim that they are neither spirit nor animal, but guardians of the swamp, enforcing rules invisible to the living. The sounds at midnight are layered, a symphony of nature and something else. Frogs call, insects chirp, and water drips. But beneath this natural chorus, there is the occasional whisper, a shuffle of feet on mud, or the scrape of unseen claws along the cypress roots. These noises rise and fall without pattern, keeping anyone within earshot alert and uneasy. Travelers describe the experience as disorienting. Paths that appeared clear in daylight can twist into dead ends. Landmarks vanish behind fog, and reflections in the water no longer match reality. The ink-black figures seem to know the intentions of those who enter, gliding closer or retreating based on a presence that cannot be understood. Some speak of glimpses into the swamp's past. Shadows move in ways that suggest figures once human, performing tasks long forgotten. Canoes float silently, carrying invisible passengers, and areas of the water shimmer briefly, hinting at shapes that vanish before comprehension. These sightings are fleeting, yet leave a lasting impression, as if the swamp itself is replaying echoes of lives once intertwined with its waters. Survival depends on respect and caution. Those who move quickly, avoid lingering, and remain aware of every sound and shift in the fog are most likely to leave the swamp intact. The figures observe, follow, and sometimes mimic, testing patience and courage. Those who underestimate the swamp find themselves disoriented, chilled, and occasionally forced back by an unseen force that will not allow intrusion. Midnight Cypress is more than a swamp. It is a living, breathing environment where the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs. The cypress trees, the water, the fog, and the figures all form a network of presence that is both ancient and watchful. Every visit becomes a dance with an unseen world, one that observes, interacts, and judges with a patience only time can grant. Even when leaving, the experience lingers. The chill in the air, the sudden rustle in the undergrowth, and the memory of black figures gliding silently across still waters remain imprinted in mind and body. Midnight Cypress does not release its visitors easily. The swamp-ass reputation endures because it commands caution, respect, and awe. The black shapes, the whispering fog, and the press of unseen presence remind all who approach that some places are not meant to be tamed or fully understood. Midnight Cypress thrives in its own time, after the sun has set, when the ordinary world is asleep and the swamp itself becomes a keeper of secrets and the shadowed realm of figures gliding over water. To enter is to acknowledge that the night belongs to the swamp, that its guardians are ever present, and that those who move without care may find themselves part of its midnight story, remembered in whispers and mist long after the night has passed. Travelers entering Murkshade quickly notice the silence. Birds avoid this place, and even the insects seem scarce. The usual sounds of wetlands are absent, replaced by an oppressive stillness that weighs on the senses. Every step is accompanied by the faint squelch of mud and water, amplified in the unnatural quiet. Visitors often speak of black shapes that drift above the water. They float midair, formless and shifting, appearing as though suspended by unseen threads. The figures move slowly, deliberately, disappearing when approached or glanced at directly. Their presence is subtle, yet unmistakable, a reminder that the wetlands are not as empty as they seem. A sudden chill accompanies the shapes. Travelers are described feeling cold fingers brush their necks or graze their arms, fleeting touches that send a shiver through the body. The water of Murkshade is dark and deep, reflecting the shadows of the twisted trees above. Ripples appear without wind, spreading outward in concentric circles, as though something beneath stirs deliberately. Every movement in the water draws attention, a reminder that the wetland conceals far more than what the eye can see. Mist thickens toward evening, reducing visibility to mere feet. The shapes in the air become harder to track, and glimpses of glowing eyes may appear in the shadows between trees. Whispers ride on the wind, faint and indistinct, giving the sense that the wetlands themselves are murmuring warnings to intruders. Locals avoid the deeper sections of Murkshade. They speak of travelers who enter for observation or adventure and never returned. Some reappear days later, silent and distant, their eyes haunted by what they witnessed. Others vanish completely, leaving only muddy footprints that lead to the water's edge and end abruptly. The floor of Murkshade seems to shift subtly in response to visitors. Vines hang lower, roots rise higher, and the underbrush tightens, creating an unwelcoming labyrinth. Every movement feels observed, as though the swamp monitors its visitors, allowing brief glimpses but withholding understanding. The more one moves, the heavier the air feels, pressing down like a physical weight. At night, the wetlands transform entirely. Moonlight rarely reaches the ground, and shadows grow into shapes that seem to float, glide, and gather. The mist thickens into a curtain, obscuring familiar paths. Travelers report seeing the black shapes closer, hovering at eye level, and sometimes vanishing only when approached with caution. Sounds take on a different character after dark. Faint splashes, distant whispers, and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures combine to create an unsettling symphony. Even the slightest movement of water or foliage feels purposeful, as though the swamp itself responds to the presence of the living. Every sense is heightened, and every instinct tells intruders to proceed with extreme care. Murkshade's darkness is not just visual but atmospheric. Even in sunlight, the dense canopy filters light to the point where shadows dominate. Paths are deceptive, bending and looping, creating the sensation of walking in circles. Travelers often report losing their sense of time, experience a feeling that minutes stretch into hours, and that the wetlands exist outside the normal flow of the world. Those who remain for any length of time describe a growing awareness that they are not alone. The black shapes may drift silently alongside or linger just beyond sight, and the faint touches continue. The wetland's presence is palpable, pressing against the mind and body, demanding attention, respect, and careful observation. The mysteries of Murkshade wetlands extend beyond immediate perception. Shadows that float in midair, subtle touches on skin, and the unseen forces beneath the water create a landscape that is both beautiful and threatening. The swamp tests curiosity and caution in equal measure, rewarding those who move carefully with fleeting glimpses, but punishing recklessness with confusion, fear, and sometimes disappearance. Even after leaving, visitors report lingering effects. The memory of floating shapes, the weight of the mist, and the cold brushes against the skin remain vivid. Dreams may carry the swamp's presence, shadows drifting in corners, whispers echoing faintly, and the unsettling sensation of being observed even in safe places. Murkshade wetlands leaves an imprint long after the living depart. Murkshade is a reminder that nature can harbor more than flora and fauna. It is a place where the veil between the known and the unknown feels thin, where the air carries a sensation of hidden eyes, and where darkness persists even in daylight. Those who enter must tread lightly, for the swamp watches, waits, and remembers all who pass through its dense, shadowed paths. The wetlands exist as a landscape of mystery, danger, and quiet beauty. The black shapes drift, the mist curls, and the unseen presences linger, challenging perception and provoking awe. Murkshade is not a place to conquer or explore recklessly, but a place to respect, observe, and feel the silent pulse of a land that is alive in ways beyond ordinary understanding. The swamp endures, patient and watchful, its black waters reflecting the shadows above, its shapes drifting silently, and its unseen fingers brushing against those who enter. Murk-shade wetlands is a living reminder that some places are never fully known, and that the line between the natural and the supernatural can be as thin and shifting as the mist that drifts over its darkened waters. Bleakwater Bayou stretches across the horizon, a silent expanse of dark water and dense cypress trees. The surface of the bayou is unnaturally smooth, like polished glass, reflecting the surrounding trees and sky with a clarity that seems almost surreal. Yet beneath that placid surface, shadows move, flickering and darting faster than any fish or animal could. They twist and coil in patterns that suggest intent, creating the unsettling feeling that the water is alive, aware, and watching. The air above Bleakwater is thick and heavy, carrying a damp, earthy scent that clings to skin and clothing. Mist rises in thin sheets from the water at dawn and dusk, blurring the boundary between land and water, and giving the bayou an otherworldly appearance. Every ripple in the glassy surface seems magnified, as if the water itself is observing each step taken along its edges. The mist settles in, casting long shadows across the water and the surrounding landscape. Visitors report a sense of being followed. Shapes appear briefly in the corner of the eye, then vanish the moment attention is turned toward them. They are not solid, but more like distortions, shadows of forms that might have once been human or animal. The phenomenon is consistent across decades of reports, leaving even the most skeptical witnesses unnerved. The trees that line the bayou loom overhead, their branches draped with Spanish moss, swaying gently despite the absence of wind. Moonlight casts long, wavering shadows across the water, creating illusions that trick the mind. It is difficult to tell where reality ends and imagination begins, and many who venture into the bayou at night find themselves disoriented, unnerved by the constant sensation of unseen eyes tracking their movements. Sounds in Bleakwater Bayou are subtle yet profoundly affecting. The occasional splash or rustle is amplified in the quiet, and the wind carries whispers that seem almost articulate, but dissolve when focused upon. Some report hearing cries or soft murmurs from beneath the water, faint and distorted as though the bayou itself is trying to communicate in a language beyond comprehension. Local legends speak of travelers who entered the bayou and never returned. Canoes and small boats are occasionally found adrift, with no sign of those who once occupied them. The water is deep and treacherous, yet the danger appears to be more than physical. Many who venture close to the water's edge recount an overwhelming feeling of being watched, of invisible forces guiding or repelling their movements, as though the bayou asserts control over who may approach. At night, the surface of Bleakwater becomes a mirror to another world. Shadows move with deliberate intent, sometimes rising above the water for a brief moment before dissolving into mist. Shapes take on humanoid forms, crouching at the edges of vision, only to vanish when confronted. The experience is disorienting and often terrifying, leaving a lasting impression of a presence just beyond reach. Even in daylight, the bayou holds an eerie stillness. The water reflects the sky perfectly, yet it carries a sense of hidden depth and unseen complexity below. Observers have reported seeing shapes swim beneath the surface, out of sync with currents and the natural behavior of aquatic life. Some describe these forms as elongated and shadowy, moving in ways that defy physics, reinforcing the legend of Bayou as a place where ordinary rules do not apply. Bleakwater Bayou is not only a site of mystery, but also of fascination. Researchers, photographers, and curious travelers are drawn to its surface, hoping to witness the shadows firsthand or to capture evidence of the unexplained. Yet the bayou seems to resist observation, preserving its secrets and maintaining an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. Images often fail to capture the subtle movements, sounds, and sensations that define the experience, leaving the witness with an unshakable impression rather than concrete proof. Despite the danger and the unsettling presence, the bayou holds a haunting beauty. Reflections of the sky ripple across the water, and the moss-draped cypress trees create natural sculptures of light and shadow. The interplay of mist, water, and darkness produces a cinematic landscape, compelling yet forbidding, where every step feels both significant and precarious. The legacy of Bleakwater Bayou endures in the stories passed from one generation to the next. Tales of fleeting shadows, vanished travelers, and whispered warnings reinforce the sense that this is a place apart from the ordinary, where the natural and supernatural intersect. Each visitor leaves changed, carrying with them the memory of a bayou that watches, waits, and moves in ways unseen. Bleakwater Bayou remains a testament to the unknown, a place where curiosity meets caution and where the surface of the water hides far more than it reveals. The shadows beneath glide silently, reminding all who approach that some mysteries are deeper than the eye can see, and that the Bayou's secrets are guarded by forces unseen but undeniably present. Shadowfen stretches across the landscape like a living maze of water, trees, and fog. Its water is dark and still, reflecting the thick canopy of cypress above. The air is heavy with moisture and the scent of decaying leaves, carrying a silence that feels almost unnatural. Every step into the swamp seems to pull the visitor deeper into a world where the ordinary rules of nature no longer fully apply. Tall cypress trees rise from the water like ancient sentinels. Their twisted roots anchor them in the murky depths, and their branches reach toward the sky, forming a shadowed roof that filters light into shifting patterns on the surface below. Thick fog clings to the swamp, curling and twisting around the trees, creating corridors and hiding places where eyes, some human and some not, may be watching. The swamp is named for the creatures it harbors, though descriptions of them vary. Locals speak of watchers who never blink, figures that appear and disappear in the fog without warning. Some say these beings walk on the water itself, gliding silently across the surface as though the laws of physics bend in Shadowfen. Others describe shapes that linger just at the edge of sight, tall and thin, sometimes moving in ways no living creature should be able to move. Visitors report a sense of being observed, a feeling that intensifies the deeper they venture into the swamp. Even in the daylight, the shadows play tricks, shifting and stretching unnaturally. Sounds carry differently in Shadowfen. A footstep or a splash can echo unnaturally, bouncing between trees and water, making it impossible to determine where it originated. Whispering breezes move through the cypress, sometimes sounding like voices, calling to those who pass too close to the water's edge. Fog thickens as night falls, swallowing paths and hiding landmarks. The moonlight reflects off the still waters in patterns that seem almost deliberate, revealing glimpses of movement beneath the surface. Shadows stretch across the swamp as if reaching for intruders. Travelers have reported hearing soft splashes behind them with no visible source, and seeing silhouettes that vanish the moment they are looked at directly. Shadowfen is not just a place of passive observation. The swamp has a presence that feels active, as though it responds to those who enter. Boats drift without wind, branches sway with no breeze, and sometimes objects are shifted or move without explanation. The swamp appears to test visitors, drawing them further into its depths, while the watchers remain hidden, silently recording every motion. Legends say the swamp holds memories of the past, capturing the energy of those who ventured too far or never returned. Some claim the figures seen walking on the water are the spirits of lost explorers, trapped between worlds, forced to glide endlessly across the surface. Others believe the watchers are something older, guardians of the swamp, entities older than the cypress themselves, ensuring that the secrets of Shadowfen remain hidden. Those who have spent time in the swamp tell of sensations that linger long after leaving. The sense of eyes upon them, cold drafts brushing their skin, and whispers carried on the fog follow them into the safety of dry land. Dreams are haunted with glimpses of figures moving through mist, and some say they wake with the sounds of water slapping against unseen surfaces echoing in their ears. Shadowfen leaves its mark not just on the body, but on the mind, creating a memory of unease and wonder that refuses to fade. Despite the warnings and the legends, some are drawn to Shadowfen by curiosity, seeking to capture its beauty, its mystery, or a glimpse of the creatures it harbors. Photographers, hikers, and thrill-seekers venture into the fog, hoping to glimpse the impossible. Many return with stories of shapes that moved against the flow of the water, of shadows that did not behave naturally, and of a quiet, omnipresent gaze that seemed to follow every step. Some leave captivated, others leave haunted, but few ever forget the feeling of being watched in a place where the ordinary and the supernatural converge. Shadowfen remains a threshold between the known and the unknown, a swamp where water and fog hide secrets, where shadows are alive, and where watchers glide silently across the surface. It is a place of beauty and danger, mystery and memory. Every ripple, every shadow, every movement tells a story of the unknown, leaving those who enter with the undeniable sense that they are not alone, and perhaps never have been. The swamp endures, patient, silent, and eternal, guarding its secrets in the mist and shadows of Shadowfen. In the mist and shadows of Shadowfen. Black Marsh Hollow is a place where the air hangs heavy with moisture and the scent of earth and decaying foliage. Thick reeds sway in the slightest breeze, but often there is no wind at all. The surface of the water is glassy, reflecting the gnarled trees and darkened sky above. Yet movement stirs beneath without warning. Visitors who venture too close often speak of whispers carried just above the surface of the water. These whispers call out softly, drawing attention, and sometimes causing those nearby to freeze. They are faint, fragmented, like words carried from another world, and their source is impossible to locate. The sounds echo in the mind, lingering long after the initial encounter. Shadow creatures move silently through the hollow, gliding between trees and reeds as if floating above the water. Their forms are dark and indistinct, shifting with the mist that clings to the surface. Some say they are guardians of the swamp, while others believe them to be spirits bound to the hollow by something lost long ago. The water of Black Marsh Hollow behaves strangely. Small boats, once tied securely to the banks, are sometimes found pulled under the water without explanation. Lines remain taut, ropes undisturbed, yet the vessels vanish beneath the glassy surface. Fishermen and travelers speak of sudden ripples, shadows stretching across the water, and the faint sensation of unseen hands gripping the hull. The water of Black Marsh Hollow behaves strangely. Paths through the hollow twist and turn in unexpected ways. Muddy banks appear solid, only to give way beneath a foot, leaving travelers with sudden, chilling immersion. The reeds close in like walls, and fog rises without warning, cutting off visibility. Navigation becomes disorienting, and the familiar becomes strange. The hollow itself seems alive, guiding, warning, and sometimes punishing those who venture too far. Sounds in the swamp are layered and unpredictable. Frogs croak, insects chirp, and water drips from unseen branches. Beneath these natural sounds, the faintest whispers can be heard, sometimes calling names or repeating phrases that do not belong to the living. Footsteps follow without source, and the occasional splash hint at movement beneath the surface. Travelers speak of a weight in the air, a pressure on their shoulders, and the feeling of eyes watching from every angle. The shadow creatures interact with their environment in ways that defy explanation. Floating logs shift positions. Canoes move slowly along the banks, and areas of the water shimmer briefly with shapes that vanish when approached. These occurrences are subtle, yet enough to unsettle anyone who has experienced them. The hollow does not make itself known through terror alone. It is a slow, creeping awareness that permeates everything. Those who spend time in Black Marsh Hollow describe a heightened sense of perception. Sound seems sharper, movements more deliberate, and the mind becomes alert to every detail. The fog acts as both a barrier and a guide, obscuring danger while hinting at unseen presences. Eyes adjust to darkness, yet still fail to penetrate the deepest shadows where the black forms glide. History clings to the hollow like the mist. Tales of lost travelers, missing boats, and unexplained drownings are abundant. Generations recount stories of figures seen along the water's edge, and the uneasy feeling that the swamp watches, remembers, and waits. Navigation requires caution. Travelers learn quickly to move deliberately, to listen to subtle changes in the environment, and to acknowledge the presence of the hollow itself. Those who ignore these signs often report feeling disoriented, chilled, and aware of something moving just beyond perception. The water seems to respond to intent, rising in sudden waves or remaining unnaturally still, reflecting the state of the hollow and those within it. At night, Black Marsh Hollow takes on a life of its own. Fog thickens, swallowing distant landmarks. Shadows stretch across the water and reeds, gliding silently toward the center of the hollow. The whispering voices intensify, and the weight of the unseen presses closer. Even those who know the hollow well find themselves hesitant, moving slowly and listening intently for the softest sounds that might betray the presence of the unknown. Despite its danger, the hollow has an allure. The beauty of dark water, reflecting starlight, the quiet ripple of movement beneath the surface, and the sense of ancient presence captivates the imagination. Travelers are drawn to its mysteries, compelled to witness the interplay of shadow and fog, the whispered voices, and the subtle power that dominates the swamp. Black Marsh Hollow is a living enigma. The shadows, the whispers, the unseen forces all create an environment that is both alive and aware, that guards its secrets, and a hollow that exists beyond the ordinary world. To enter Black Marsh Hollow is to enter a realm where the familiar dissolves, where water and fog hide truths unseen, and where the line between the natural and supernatural blurs. Every ripple, shadow, and whisper serves as a reminder that the hollow is never empty, never silent, and always watching. The swamp waits, patient and eternal, its presence felt by all who approach, and remembered long after they leave. Misty Vale Swamp stretches across the landscape like a living shadow, its waters dark and still. The fog thickens, muting sounds and distorting shapes into something otherworldly. Travelers approaching Misty Vale often speak of an uneasy quiet. Birds avoid the trees here, and the usual hum of insects seems absent. Every step into the swamp feels deliberate, measured by the swamp itself. The air is thick with moisture and the scent of decaying leaves, yet beneath it lies an indefinable tension, a feeling that the land is aware of every movement. The fog does more than obscure. Shapes rise from it, taking on the semblance of humans. Shapes rise from it, taking on the semblance of humans. Taking on the semblance of humans. Mirroring gestures as if caught between worlds. Some appear to watch from a distance. Others drift closer, vanishing when approached. The shapes never fully form, yet their presence is unmistakable, leaving a lingering unease. Sounds in Misty Vale are deceptive. Travelers report hearing voices calling from fog, their own tones twisted and warped. The swamp seems to mimic them. It is as though the fog itself has memory. The water is dark and reflective, yet it hides movements that cannot be explained. Ripples appear without wind, spreading across the surface as if something beneath has stirred. Travelers have glimpsed shapes sliding just under the water, their presence hinted at by shadows that do not match any object above. The swamp watches silently, letting the living wander within its folds. The trees rise tall and twisted, their branches entwined like a cathedral of shadows. Vines hang thick, occasionally brushing against skin without wind. The underbrush is deceptive, shifting subtly to create paths that bend unexpectedly. One can feel disoriented, lost in a maze that shifts with each step. Time seems to stretch here, and the swamp has a way of making moments feel like hours. Even at dusk, Misty Vale does not grow safer. The fog thickens into an opaque curtain, hiding the landscape and the shapes within. Dark figures drift closer, sometimes appearing at eye level, only to vanish when confronted. The voices grow louder, Echoing across the water, a chorus of twisted familiarity that unsettles both mind and body. Traveler described feeling subtle touches, cold brushes against the neck or arm, fleeting and weightless, leaving only a chill in their wake. The swamp has a presence, pressing gently but insistently, reminding visitors that the living are not alone here. Some swear the swamp reacts to their fear, drawing closer with each hesitant step, challenging their courage. The reflections in the water distort reality further. Shadows appear where none should be, and shapes that rise from the fog move independently of wind or current. The swamp blurs the line between what is real and what is imagined, leaving every observer questioning their own senses. Even the most cautious traveler may feel a presence following, unseen but undeniable. Locals rarely venture deep into Misty Vale, and those who do speak of the swamp in hushed tones. Stories of visitors who entered and never returned are common, as are accounts of those who came back altered, haunted by what they witnessed. Some claim the swamp shows glimpses of memories, fears, or desires, reflecting the deepest parts of the mind back at the living in forms both subtle and terrifying. Nightfall brings a transformation. The fog grows heavier, shadows denser, and the water reflects nothing but darkness. Shapes drift closer, sometimes forming into figures that appear to walk along the water's surface. Whispers carry across the swamp, unintelligible yet insistent, creating a sense of being watched, followed, and assessed by the very land itself. The swamp's flora and terrain seem to respond to visitors. Vines tighten, roots rise, and the paths shift subtly, creating disorientation. Every sense is heightened, every instinct sharpened. Even those familiar with the landscape can feel the shift, a subtle manipulation that challenges perception and tests courage. The swamp's flora and terrain seem to respond to visitors. Misty Vale Swamp is more than water and trees. It is a living entity, observing and responding to those who enter. Shapes drift, voices echo, and touches remind visitors of their vulnerability. Time stretches, shadows deepen, and the fog transforms the ordinary into something uncanny. Every step carries risk, and every breath is heavy with presence. The swamp does not forget. It retains memories of those who wander its paths, the echoes of their voices lingering in the fog. Shadows drift where they once stood, and the cold touches may continue long after the living leave. Misty Vale is patient, quiet, and watchful, a landscape of subtle menace and quiet beauty. Even when leaving, visitors carry the swamp with them. Memories of floating shapes, warped voices, and unseen brushes linger. Dreams carry the fog in its whispers, shadows flicker at the edge of perception, and the sense of being observed persists. Misty Vale Swamp leaves an imprint, a reminder that some places are not meant to be understood fully, and that nature can hold mysteries beyond the ordinary. The swamp endures, patient and unyielding, its fog drifting like a living veil, its shapes moving silently, and its whispers following the living beyond the water, where the familiar becomes strange, where perception is tested, and where the boundary between the natural and the supernatural is as shifting and fluid as the fog itself. Phantom Reed's slough stretches across the landscape like a living maze. The water is dark and still, reflecting the sky with a deceptively calm surface. Reeds rise from the marsh in thick clusters, swaying even when there is no wind, shifting in patterns that suggest awareness. Every movement seems deliberate, as if the slough itself breathes and watches. The air is heavy with humidity and the scent of decaying vegetation. Mist drifts low over the water, curling around the reeds and obscuring the path ahead. Sounds are amplified in the silence, each snap of a twig or rustle of leaves carrying through the swamp as though magnified by unseen ears. Visitors quickly realize that the slough is not passive. It responds, subtly at first, then with increasing insistence to those who linger. Shadow creatures move among the reeds, glimpsed out of the corner of the eye. They are formless at first, shifting like smoke, but sometimes hints of structure appear, limbs, heads, eyes. They vanish instantly when confronted directly, leaving only a chill in the air and a sense of being observed. Every step into the slough feels like entering a world where ordinary rules no longer apply. Locals whisper that Phantom Reed Slough remembers every visitor. Those who arrive casually often leave quickly, sensing a presence just beyond comprehension. Others who wander too far or linger too long report a feeling of the marsh tightening around them, a subtle but inescapable pressure that forces hurried retreat. Tales persist of people who lost their way for hours, sometimes days, only to return with stories of figures silently following, shadows darting between the reeds, and whispers in a language no one can understand. The landscape is deceptive. Narrow channels of water wind through dense clusters of reeds, appearing passable from a distance but becoming impassable upon approach. Stepping into one of these channels can feel like stepping into another dimension. The water is often shallow, yet solid surfaces shift beneath the feet, as if the marsh is alive, reshaping itself to guide or trap intruders. At night, the slough transforms into a place of heightened unease. Mist thickens, and every sound becomes distorted. Whispers ride the air, unintelligible but undeniably present. Shadow forms move with greater confidence, sometimes rising above the reeds, gliding silently between the clusters, watching, waiting. The darkness itself seems to thicken, pressing against anyone who dares to venture further. Visually, Phantom Reed Slough is both beautiful and unsettling. Reeds bend in intricate patterns, reflecting moonlight in ways that create illusions of figures and movement. The surface of the water glows faintly under the night sky, hinting at shapes moving just below. Occasional birds or insects break the silence with sharp cries, but even these sounds are absorbed into the overwhelming sensation that the swamp is alive, observing, and perhaps judging. Some visitors report physical sensations that cannot be explained. Sudden chills, the feeling of unseen hands brushing against skin, and the prickling sense of eyes on the back of the neck are common. Few stay in one place long enough to test their courage. Those who do describe an oppressive heaviness, as if the swamp presses inward, demanding attention and respect. Phantom Reed Slough has its own rhythm, its own personality. It rewards caution and punishes arrogance. People who move with care, respecting the patterns of reeds and channels, often escape without incident, carrying only the eerie memory of a living landscape. Those who ignore warnings or press too far into the heart of the marsh find themselves disoriented, confused, and sometimes unable to leave for hours. The swamp seems to remember, to adapt and to respond. Even in daylight, the slough maintains an air of mystery. Sunlight reflects off the water in dazzling patterns, yet shadows linger in corners, hiding movements that hint at life beneath the reeds. Yet shadows linger in corners, hiding movements that hint at life beneath the reeds. And the subtle sense of presence that defines Phantom Reed Slough. The legacy of the slough is built on stories passed through generations. Lost hikers, unexplained disappearances, and inexplicable sensations. And inexplicable sensations contribute to the legend of a swamp that is alive with memory and watchfulness. It is a place where the natural and supernatural intertwine, where respect for the land is not just tradition, but survival. Phantom Reed Slough remains a place of fascination for adventurers, researchers, and storytellers. Its dark waters and swaying reeds beckon, promising beauty and terror in equal measure. Those who enter leave with a profound sense of having touched a world beyond ordinary perception. A marsh that watches, waits, and remembers every intrusion, every step, and every whisper carried on the wind. Dreadwater Bayou stretches across the landscape like a living shadow. Its waters black as night and still as death. The surface reflects no light, only darkness, broken occasionally by ripples that hint at movement beneath. A heavy, humid air hangs over the swamp, thick with the scent of decay and moss, carried with a silence that feels almost alive. Tall cypress trees rise from the water, their roots tangled in the dark mud below. Moss drapes from branches like spectral curtains, swaying gently even when there is no wind. Shadows gather beneath the trees, pooling in shapes that seem to watch as travelers move along the narrow paths and over rotting wooden walkways. The bayou is said to be haunted by figures that move just beneath the surface. Locals speak of shapes gliding silently through the black water, vanishing the moment they are noticed. Some claim these shapes are spirits trapped in the swamp, unable to leave, condemned to dwell forever in the stagnant waters. Others believe they are creatures older than memory, guardians of a place that does not welcome the living. At night, the swamp transforms. Mist rises from the surface, curling around the cypress and the shadows alike, turning familiar paths into a labyrinth of uncertainty. Glowing eyes are sometimes seen staring from the water, watching, calculating, unblinking. Some who have encountered them speak of a cold dread that seeps into the bones, a warning to leave while there is still time. The eyes vanish when approached, leaving only the dark, still water, and a lingering sense of being observed. Sounds carry strangely through Dreadwater Bayou. A froga-esque croak or the splash of a fish echoes unnaturally, bouncing off the trees and making it impossible to determine its origin. Footsteps on old wooden planks sometimes seem to come from behind, even when the path ahead is empty. Travelers report feeling sudden chills, gusts of cold air brushing against them as if something unseen has passed too close. Legends warn of the bayou's past. Settlers vanished here, their boats found adrift with no one aboard, their cries unheard by anyone on the shore. Some say the swamp collects the energy of those who enter and never leave, feeding on fear and sorrow. Others tell of fishermen who drift too far and are pulled beneath the water, never to resurface, leaving only ripples and the occasional faint splash to mark their passing. The swamp seems to shift as well, trails twisting in ways that defy logic. Paths that once led safely through the cypress now lead travelers deeper into the mist, toward areas where the water is unnaturally still and the shadows are thickest. Trees appear closer than before, moss seeming to reach and grasp at clothing and skin, slowing progress, testing resolve. Visitors who linger too long describe hallucinations, or perhaps visions, of the Bayou's dark past. Shapes rise from the water, figures of men and women who vanished decades ago, their faces pale, eyes hollow. Some are kneeling, others reaching, calling silently in gestures that cannot be heard. These visions fade as suddenly as they appear, leaving only the stillness and the unshakable impression that the bayou remembers. Despite the danger, some are drawn to Dreadwater Bayou, seeking the thrill of its mysteries, hoping to witness its unearthly phenomena firsthand. Photographers speak of capturing images where shadows move against natural light, where glowing eyes peer from beneath the water, and misformed shapes that vanish when approached. Those who spend time in the bayou leave changed, carrying the memory of being watched and the haunting knowledge that the swamp is alive in ways that are impossible to understand. Dreadwater Bayou endures, a dark, sentient presence, patient and silent. Its waters hold secrets, its shadows conceal watchers, and its mist masks the boundaries between the living and the lost. Every ripple, every unexplainable movement, every reflection of glowing eyes is a reminder that the bayou is more than just land and water. It is a place where time slows, fear grows, and the boundary between the natural and the supernatural is blurred. To enter Dreadwater Bayou is to step into a world where shadows move, eyes watch, and the black water remembers all who dare tread its surface. The bayou remains eternal, dark, and ever watchful, guarding its secrets in silence and mist, waiting for those who will test its depths, and perhaps become a part of its endless story. Hauntfin is a place shrouded in mist and silence, a village long abandoned by most of its residents. The streets are overgrown, the buildings crumbling, and the river that winds through the center carries a cold, persistent fog that never fully lifts. Walking through the village, the air feels heavy, almost watchful, pressing gently against the skin and hinting at secrets that refuse to remain buried. Those who have chosen to stay speak of shadows moving just beyond the edge of vision. They shift with the fog, gliding along walls, slipping through alleys, and sometimes following quietly at a distance. The shapes are indistinct, more suggestion than a form, but their presence is undeniable. Even inside homes, the feeling persists as if the village itself has learned to breathe with the residents, and the shadows are always observing. Visitors often notice that the fog reacts to their presence. It thickens when approached, curling around feet and ankles, filling empty rooms with a chilling humidity. Sounds are distorted and haunting. Footsteps echo unevenly, doors creak without wind, and the soft sigh of the river carries whispers that cannot be traced. Some swear the fog carries voices, faint but urgent, calling names or repeating words from another time. At night, the village transforms. Street lamps, long unused, appear to flicker faintly in the distance. Shadows lengthen and take on shapes that seem almost human, lingering where no one should be. Windows reflect movement that cannot be explained, and some claim to see figures at the far end of the street, standing motionless, watching. Some claim to see figures at the far end of the street, standing motionless, watching. Residents describe a sense of being followed, not just in Honfin itself, but even after leaving. Not just in Honfin itself, but even after leaving, shadows, they say, sometimes travel with the unwary, a reminder that the village does not forget easily. Shadows, they say, sometimes travel with the unwary, a reminder that the village does not forget easily. Disappearances are the darkest aspect of Honfin. Few details exist, but stories persist of individuals vanishing entirely after dark. Doors left open, rooms empty, possessions untouched, yet the person is gone. Locals speak of searching the surrounding woods and riverbanks, only to find traces that vanish without explanation. These vanishings are often preceded by a feeling of being watched, a sudden drop in temperature, or the sensation of someone standing just behind, unseen. Even in daylight, Honfin feels alive. The trees sway without wind, shadows stretch in impossible directions, and the fog rolls along the streets like a tide. Visitors notice subtle movements in abandoned houses. Curtains twitch, objects shift slightly, and floors creak as if footsteps are pacing. The air carries a persistent hum, a vibration almost imperceptible, yet deeply unsettling. It is as if the village itself remembers every moment, and every soul that has ever called a home leaves an echo in its atmosphere. Those who live in Honfin speak of a rhythm to the haunting. Shadows appear and retreat in patterns. Footsteps rise and fall in cadence with the unseen river, and whispers follow the curves of alleyways. There is a strange familiarity to it. Many learn to move carefully, avoiding prolonged attention on any one shadow, and keeping lights low and fires burning to maintain a semblance of control. The river that winds through Honfin is central to its eerie presence. Its waters are dark, almost black, reflecting the fog and the skeletal trees along its banks. At times, it moves unnaturally, as if alive, rising without warning or carrying objects downstream that were never touched. Residents speak of hearing splashes, voices, or laughter that cannot be accounted for, and the river seems to be both a barrier and a passage, a place where the lost might linger. Visitors who have dared to explore Honfin describe an emotional weight that is difficult to articulate. A deep sadness permeates the village, mingled with curiosity, fear, and a strange allure. It is impossible to ignore the history embedded in the crumbling walls and fog-laden streets. The village exists in a liminal space, caught between the past and the present, between life and something beyond. Those who enter are swept into its narrative whether they wish to be or not. At night, the shadows seem to take on a life of their own. They linger near doorways, stretch across streets, and gather at intersections where the fog is thickest. Some visitors have reported glimpsing forms in windows, watching silently, yet when approached, nothing remains. The feeling of presence does not end at the threshold of buildings. It follows along paths, through gardens, and even into the woods surrounding the village. Life in Honfin is an uneasy coexistence. The few who remain adapt to the environment, learning its moods and respecting its rhythms. They move with caution, acknowledging the unseen watchers, and avoiding prolonged eye contact with shadows. Rituals of safety emerge naturally, from the lighting of lamps to the closing of doors at sunset, all in an effort to maintain balance with a place that is both home and haunting. Hauntfin leaves an impression on all who enter. Its fog, shadows, and whispered voices are constant reminders that some places retain memory, emotion, and presence long after human life has faded. The village is a living testament to mystery, a place where the unseen and the remembered converge, and where the lingering echoes of those who vanish continue to shape the atmosphere. To step into Hauntfin is to feel the weight of its past, the vigilance of its shadows, and the persistent pull of its river and mist. It is a village that teaches caution, patience, and respect, a place where the ordinary becomes strange, and the ordinary visitor becomes a participant in a story that never truly ends. The fog rolls endlessly, the shadows glide silently, and the whispers continue, a testament to a village that refuses to be forgotten. Black Veil Marsh stretches across the land like a living shadow, its waters dark and still. The swamp is dense and unyielding, a labyrinth of roots and reeds that make navigation nearly impossible. Even experienced travelers speak of losing their way, of paths that shift without warning, and of the oppressive quiet that weighs on every step. A thick mist hangs low over the water, curling between cypress knees and gnarled trees. Figures drift silently through this haze, moving with no discernible pattern. They appear human at first glance, yet their presence feels otherworldly. When approached, they vanish, leaving only ripples on the water and a lingering chill in the air. Temperature drops are sudden and severe. Visitors report stepping from one patch of swamp into another and feeling an icy hand brush across their skin. It is never consistent, never predictable, and always unsettling. Even on warm days, these pockets of cold appear without reason, as though the swamp itself breathes through invisible lungs, shaping the air to its will. Whispers echo across the water, soft and unintelligible. No one can identify the language, yet the voices feel familiar in their cadence. They rise and fall with the mist, circling travelers, seeping into ears and thoughts. The swamp seems to speak, not with words, but with intention, reminding the living that they are intruders in a place older than memory. The water itself is deceptive. Shadows flicker across the surface, sometimes mimicking movements above, other times forming patterns of their own. Reflections are distorted, showing glimpses of figures that do not exist in the physical world. Travelers describe seeing shapes that vanish when they look directly, only to reappear in the corner of their vision. It is a place where perception is challenged, where the line between reality and illusion dissolves. Trees rise from the swamp like ancient sentinels, twisted and blackened by time. Branches hang low, brushing against faces and shoulders as if testing the boundaries of those who pass beneath. Roots pierce the water at strange angles, forming natural obstacles that seem to move when one is not watching. Every step demands attention. Every sound is amplified in the silence. Even the fog seems alive. It shifts subtly, closing in when a traveler ventures too far from the main path, then thinning just enough to lure them deeper. The mist carries a scent of decay and earth, mingling with a faint tang of water and moss. It moves with a purpose, as if guiding intruders toward unknown destinations, or perhaps warning them away from forbidden places. Birds and insects avoid Black Veil Marsh. There is no sound of wings or buzzing, only the low, persistent hum of the swamp itself. Water laps softly against roots and reeds. Yet the sound is oddly hollow, echoing in a way that unsettles the mind. Silence here is not empty. It is deliberate, filled with presence, and watched by unseen eyes. Travelers often describe fleeting touches, the brush of cold fingers along the neck or arm. It is never harmful, yet deeply unnerving. The swamp tests the senses, reminding those who enter that it is alive, aware, and patient. Figures may drift just out of reach, whispers may echo in the fog, and shadows may linger longer than they should, yet no direct harm is ever inflicted. The fear is psychological, a reminder that some places are not meant to be fully understood. As night falls, the swamp transforms. The mist thickens, becoming almost tangible. Shapes drift closer, some resembling people, others barely human in form. Whispers grow louder, circling in complex patterns that suggest intent, yet reveal nothing. The water becomes a mirror of the unknown, reflecting darkness and movement that cannot be explained. Even the most cautious traveler feels a weight in the chest, a pressure that reminds them of their own mortality. Black Veil Marsh does not forget. It retains echoes of all who passed through, layering memories into the fog, the shadows, and the water. Those who return speak of dreams haunted by shapes and whispers, of shadows that flicker at the edge of perception, of sensations that continue long after leaving. The swamp imprints itself upon the living, a reminder that some places are ancient, patient, and beyond complete comprehension. The marsh endures through seasons, changing subtly yet remaining ever constant. Fog rolls in daily, roots and trees shift imperceptibly, and water laps at hidden banks. Figures drift silently through the mist. Whispers carry across the swamp, and shadows linger on the surface, unseen but felt. Black Veil Marsh is a realm apart, a living landscape of mystery and unease that challenges every step, every sense, and every thought. Visitors leave changed, carrying a memory of cold touches, drifting figures, and whispers that speak without words. The swamp-ass presence lingers in dreams and reflections, in the chill of the sudden breeze, and in the subtle unease of quiet landscapes. Glumfin Bayou stretches across the landscape like a dark mirror. Its water appears calm, reflecting the sky in a way that hides the secrets beneath. Mist rises from the surface, curling and twisting through the cypress trees that border the bayou. The air carries the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation, heavy and unyielding. Visitors quickly sense that this is no ordinary swamp. Shadows move across the water, gliding with unnatural speed and shape. They twist like living smoke, skittering just out of reach, vanishing when approached directly. The feeling of being watched is constant, a weight that presses down from unseen eyes hidden among the trees and reeds. The surface of the bayou is deceptive. Boats and rafts occasionally drift into view, overturned and empty. No signs of struggle or explanation accompany them. Those who witness these abandoned vessels speak of sudden chills, the sense of something pulling or nudging just beneath the water, and the unsettling feeling of having passed too close to unseen watchers. At night, Glumfin Bayou transforms. Mist thickens, turning the edges of the water into indistinct shapes. The croak of frogs, the rustle of reeds, even the splash of a fish becomes part of a larger symphony of unease. Shadows appear to detach from their sources, gliding across the water or darting through the trees. Visitors report glimpsing figures that vanish when confronted, leaving only the impression that they were never entirely solid. Whispers ride the wind through the cypress branches, unintelligible yet unmistakable. They rise and fall in cadence with the shifting mist, sometimes seeming to call names, sometimes merely repeating sounds and patterns too complex to be human. Travelers moving through the bayou at night feel a constant tug of their senses, a subtle but persistent pressure guiding or warning them. Many leave before reaching the heart of the swamp, unable to ignore the growing sense that Glumfin watches, remembers, and responds. The history of the bayou adds to its ominous reputation. Generations of locals tell stories of lost hunters, fishermen, and explorers who never returned. Boats left moored at the edge of the water have been found to drift or capsize, their occupants gone without a trace. Some believe that the shadow creatures are the remnants of those who vanished, bound to the water and reeds, while others think they are guardians of the swamp, punishing those who intrude too far into its depths. Even during daylight, the bayou is unsettling. Sunlight filters through dense foliage in fragmented patterns, creating illusions of movement where none exists. Reflections on the water twist and distort, forming shapes that vanish when approached. The mist hangs low, clinging to the ground and water, obscuring vision and heightening the sense of vulnerability. Every footstep carries a whisper, every sound is amplified, and every shadow seems alive with intent. The flora and fauna of Glumfin Bayou seem to adapt to the presence of humans. Reeds bend and sway in patterns that suggest they are observing, guiding, or even warning. Branches creak and snap in response to movement. Fish rise and disappear in ways that feel calculated rather than natural. The swamp itself feels alive, responsive to those who enter, a living entity whose patience is endless but whose tolerance is thin. Some visitors describe physical sensations beyond sight and sound. Sudden chills sweep through the body, hair standing on end as though invisible hands brush against skin. An icy pressure around the chest and shoulders makes movement feel laborious. Others speak of hearing their own names whispered, the voice soft yet urgent, carrying the unmistakable weight of intelligence behind it. Few linger long enough to fully comprehend these experiences, retreating quickly with a lingering sense of being followed or observed. Glumfin Bayou remains a place where nature and legend intertwine. Its dark waters and shifting shadows have inspired stories for generations, each tale adding layers to its reputation. Those who approach with respect and caution may navigate its channels without harm, carrying only a vivid memory of its beauty and unease. Those who ignore its warnings often return with nothing tangible. The allure of Glumfin is undeniable. It captivates explorers, photographers, and storytellers, drawing them into a landscape where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, where shadow and mist take on life, and where every ripple on the water may conceal a secret. The bayou teaches that beauty and terror often coexist, that silence can speak, and that some places remember every footstep, every whisper, and every heartbeat that enters their domain. As night falls, Glumfin Bayou becomes a living stage. Mist and shadows dance, whispering voices ride the wind, where the water reflects not just the sky, but the unseen entities that inhabit its depths. To venture here is to step into a world where observation and memory merge, where caution is essential, and where the calm surface of the water hides mysteries that may never be fully understood. Nightfall wetlands stretch across the horizon like a vast, shadowed labyrinth, where darkness descends faster than anywhere else. The sun sinks behind distant trees, and the marshes seem to drink the light, leaving travelers surrounded by deep shadows and an almost tangible silence. The air is thick with mist and the scent of wet earth, creating a sense of isolation that tightens around anyone who steps into this eerie landscape. Tall reeds sway in the evening breeze, rustling like whispers. The gnarled trees stand like sentinels over the still water. Moss hangs from branches, dripping slowly into shallow pools below. Every step on the soft, muddy ground produces a muted sound, yet it feels like the swamp itself is listening, waiting, aware of each intruder who dares to enter. Forms move through the darkness here, darting between trees and reeds, glimpsed for only a moment before vanishing as if swallowed by the night. Some are humanoid, their movements deliberate and almost graceful, while others are shadowy blurs that refuse to be pinned down. Travelers report feeling unseen eyes following them, a sensation that causes hairs to stand on end and hearts to pound in the quiet. The wetlands are alive with sound and silence in equal measure. Frogs call from the water. Insects hum in rhythm with the wind. And the occasional splash hints at something moving beneath the surface. Footsteps echo unnaturally, sometimes appearing where no one has walked. And whispers ride the breeze, carrying word that fade before they can be understood. Nightfall wetlands hold stories older than memory. Settlers who attempted to traverse the marshes often vanished, leaving behind only empty campsites or small belongings abandoned along the water's edge. Some say the wetlands claim travelers who linger too long, drawing them deeper into the shadows until they become a part of the darkness themselves. Others believe the spirits of the lost wander among the reeds, forever trapped between the living and the dead, bound to the marsh that swallowed them whole. At night, the wetlands take on a life of their own. Mist rises from the water, curling around the trees and forming shapes that seem to move with intention. Shadows stretch unnaturally, sometimes resembling figures kneeling, watching, or reaching toward intruders. The air grows colder, carried with a faint scent of decay and a heavy weight of unseen presence. Every rustle, every ripple, every faint splash feels deliberate, like the swamp is testing those who enter. Travelers speak of sudden chills, the sensation of hands brushing against them in the darkness. and glimpses of figures that vanish when confronted. Some hear distant cries, the echo of voices calling out in fear or desperation. Yet no one is there to respond. Others describe glowing eyes in the distance, reflected in the water for only a fleeting moment, before disappearing into the fog. Paths twist and shift in the wetlands, confusing even the most experienced wanderers. Trails that seem familiar can loop back on themselves, and the moss-covered trees obscure landmarks that might guide a lost traveler. The deeper one ventures, the heavier the air feels, as if the darkness itself is pressing closer, urging the living to leave while they still can. Despite the danger, nightfall wetlands draw those who seek mystery, adventure, and the unknown. Photographers and thrill seekers come hoping to capture glimpses of the elusive figures or the haunting beauty of the mist-laden marsh. Few leave unchanged, carrying the memory of being watched, of hearing their own name whisper on the wind, and of shadows that move independently of any light source. A boundary where the natural and supernatural intertwine. Reeds sway with life unseen, and the fog conceals secrets older than the tallest trees. That the swamp remembers, and it does not forget. Nightfall wetlands are timeless, patient, and eternal. They invite, they warn, and they guard. Those who wander too far may find themselves lost in more ways than one, drawn into the darkness until they become part of the stories whispered by the wind. The wetlands remain, ever shifting, ever watching, a place where shadows reign and nightfall never truly ends. Hollow Fen Bayou stretches across miles of murky water and dense vegetation, the largest of all haunted swamps. Its waters are dark and still, reflecting twisted cypress trees that rise like silent sentinels. Fog drifts along the surface, thick and heavy, curling around tree trunks and snaking through the undergrowth. The swamp feels alive in a way that is difficult to describe, as though every movement of water or whisper of wind carries intention. Shadow creatures roam freely here, slipping silently through the mist and disappearing just beyond sight. They move with fluid grace, their forms dark and indistinct, often mistaken for trees or drifting fog. Visitors speak of the feeling of being watched, a presence that follows even when the eyes see nothing. Every step on the narrow, winding path seems measured, as if the swamp itself is observing, testing patience and caution. The sounds of Hollow Fen are unsettling. Cries echo from the deepest reaches of the swamp, distant yet piercing, carried by the humid air. Footsteps seem to rise from the water itself, accompanied by soft scraping noises that brush against tree bark as if claws are tracing unseen patterns. Occasionally, a splash breaks the quiet, but the water remains calm afterward, leaving only the lingering sense of someone or something moving just below the surface. Local legends speak of the swamp as a guardian of secrets, a place that punishes those who trespass without respect. Hunters and explorers report sudden chills, limbs feeling heavy, and compasses spinning wildly. Some say the water shifts unnaturally to block paths or carry intruders back to the riverbank, while others tell of mist thickening to the point of obscuring all landmarks, leaving them lost for hours. The bayou is a place of contradictions. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy, casting patterns on the water that seem to move with intent. Yet the beauty of these reflections cannot dispel the creeping dread that lurks beneath. Shadows stretch in impossible directions, and sounds carry in ways that defy explanation. Even seasoned adventurers feel a growing unease as they move deeper into Hollow Fen, sensing that every tree and waterway holds memory and awareness. Visitors often describe moments of unnerving clarity. A shadow pauses in the fog, almost seeming to watch, then vanishes when approached. The cries of the lost sometimes coalesce into voices repeating a single word or name, a lament that seems ancient and personal all at once. Water ripples without cause, as if something beneath the surface stirs in response to attention, and the air grows heavy with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. Despite the danger, Hollow Fen draws curiosity and fascination. Photographers, hikers, and paranormal enthusiasts venture into its depths, seeking the thrill of the unknown. Yet many return with stories of a place that does not tolerate intrusion. Boats are carried off course, equipment malfunctions, and the path back seems to stretch endlessly. Those who linger too long report seeing figures on the water, pale and featureless, watching from a distance before disappearing into mist. The swamp is also a home. Animals adapt to its rhythms, moving cautiously among roots and waterways, while the vegetation thrives in the humid, mysterious environment. The same fog that unsettles humans shields life, creating a world separate from the ordinary. Hollow fen has existed for centuries, its presence unwavering, maintaining balance between the natural and the supernatural, between the living and the echoes of those long gone. At night, the bayou transforms further. Darkness deepens the shadows and amplifies sound. The cries of the lost become clearer, punctuated by distant, almost deliberate splashes. Moonlight glints on water, revealing glimpses of shapes moving with a strange, almost sentient purpose. Some claim the swamp communicates through these signs, warning those who wander too far or testing the resolve of those who approach with curiosity rather than respect. Warning those who wander too far or testing the resolve of those who approach with curiosity rather than respect. Even-day visitors cannot escape the influence of hollow fen. The light does little to diminish the sense of being observed. Trees appear to shift subtly when not directly watched, and the water reflects not only the landscape, but a deeper presence that defies explanation. It is a place that teaches humility, patience, and awareness of forces unseen. Hollow Fen Bayou is more than a location. It is a living narrative. Every ripple, whisper, and shadow contributes to a story written over centuries. The swamp holds memory, emotion, and presence in ways the human mind struggles to comprehend. It guards its secrets fiercely, ensuring that those who enter are changed by the experience. The cries of the lost, the shifting shadows, and the restless waters remain constant reminders of a place that exists on the edge of perception. To step into Hollow Fen is to enter a realm where the ordinary world fades and the extraordinary takes hold. Visitors are drawn into its rhythm, sensing both danger and wonder, understanding that the swamp does not exist merely as landscape, but as entity. Every shadow, every sound, and every ripple contributes to the feeling of being part of a story larger than any single individual. A story that unfolds slowly, deliberately, and endlessly. Those who leave Hollow Fen often carry more than memories. Some speak of dreams filled with fog and shadow, of voices calling from water and trees, of the sense that the swamp watches even from afar. Hollow Fen Bayou is a sanctuary, a warning, and a home to forces unseen, reminding all who encounter it. And some secrets are never meant to be uncovered. The swamp stretches on, dark, silent, and alive. Shadows glide between trees, water ripples without cause, and the cries of the lost echo faintly on the wind. Hollow Fen Bayou exists beyond ordinary time, a living testament to the power of the unseen. It is a place of beauty, dread, and mystery, where the living and the echoes of the past coexist, and where every visitor leaves changed, aware that some corners of the world are best approached with reverence and caution. We have now wandered through 25 haunted wetland swamps in Louisiana, places where shadow creatures roam freely, watching, waiting, and feeding on fear. These swamps are not just landscapes. They are alive with memories, darkness, and restless spirits. Next time you see a Louisiana swamp, think twice before stepping too close to the water. The shadows are always waiting. The mist carries whispers of the lost, and the swamp never forgets. May your journeys be safe, and may the shadows remain just shadows for your sake.